Chapter 187. Late at night, they decided to take a break and set up camp under a cliff. Wei Chou lit 3 bonfires and protected Lin Muyu at the spot closest to the cliff. This way, they could guard against the Heaven Beast's sneak attack. After a day of running, they were at least several hundred kilometers away from the forest of malicious ghosts. However, that ominous feeling still lingered in Lin Muyu's heart. He looked at the darkness in the distance with an ugly expression and lowered his voice. Wei Chou, how many arrows do you have left? 3. Sir, what's wrong? Let's set a trap. Ah! Wei Chou was astonished. We've already run for hundreds of kilometers. Could it be that the Heaven Vault Beast will launch a sneak attack? It will. Trust me. Yes. Wei Chou signaled with his eyes, and Xiahou Sang and the other 2 royal guards immediately took out their long swords and spears and dug a pit that was about 10 meters wide and 5 meters deep on the right side of the front. Then they laid down dead wood and scattered snow as a trap. Meanwhile, Wei Chou pulled back the 3 spare longbows and mounted the arrows on them. After setting up the string, he aimed at the deep pit and was ready to shoot. Of course, all of this was done openly. Can this really fool the Heaven Beast? Wei Chou squatted beside Lin Muyu and said, The Heaven Beast isn't an ordinary beast. It has already gained intelligence and isn't just an ordinary level of intelligence. If it's really watching us, then what we've done would be in vain. No, it'll work. Lin Muyu looked up. The cliff above them was like an eagle's beak. It was enormous and covered in snow. Who knew which direction the Heaven Beast would come from, so they could only take a gamble. Hiss! Lin Muyu pressed her palm on the ground. The calabash vines silently entered the ground and frantically stirred and squeezed, separating the soil under the ground. Soon, Lin Muyu quietly completed a trap. It wasn't wide, no more than 5 meters, but 10 meters deep. Don't let anyone walk around there. Tie the horses and don't let them move. Lin Muyu pointed at the snow not far away. Wei Chou seemed to realize something and nodded. Okay. Although Xiahou Sang and the other 2 royal guards were very nervous, they maintained a trace of calmness. If it were a weaker person, they would have already broken down. A 13,400-year-old spiritual beast was staring at them, ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Furthermore, this spiritual beast could even turn invisible. This was a pressure that no one could withstand. Go to sleep. I'll wake you up when it comes, Lin Muyu said calmly. You can really sleep? Wei Chou was stunned. Lin Muyu curled her lips and lowered her voice. Don't be so honest. Can't you pretend to be asleep? If we don't sleep, this injured Heaven Beast definitely won't attack us. Got it. Heh. Everyone leaned against the rock wall and took a short nap. The flickering flames reflected on their cheeks, giving them a peaceful feeling. Although Lin Muyu closed his eyes, he fully activated his spiritual perception. He could almost confirm that the Heaven Beast was staring at them not far away. The Heaven Beast could turn invisible and hide its aura, and the spiritual pulse technique couldn't detect it. However, thanks to the heavy snow, the ground was covered with snow. As long as the Heaven Beast came, the sound of its paws stepping on the snow wouldn't escape Lin Muyu's ears, no matter how low its voice was. As the cold wind whistled, Lin Muyu had to distinguish the Heaven Beast's footsteps from the sound of the wind. He frowned and held the dragon spirit sword in his arm. Although he looked like he was sleeping, his spirit was completely tense. After an unknown amount of time, the Heaven Beast seemed to be an experienced hunter. It fought with Lin Muyu and the others in a battle of wits and courage, patiently waiting for the best opportunity. Just when one of the royal guards started snoring, the Heaven Beast finally moved. Rustle, rustle. Lin Muyu clearly heard the sound of the Heaven Beast stepping on the snow. He needed to determine how far the Heaven Beast was and when it would attack. This was especially important. Don't move. Be careful. It's coming, Lin Muyu said in a voice as soft as a mosquito. Wei Chou and the others were all solemn, but they still maintained their sleeping posture. Rustle, rustle. The footsteps got closer and closer. When the Heaven Beast was less than 10 meters away, Lin Muyu suddenly opened his eyes and said, It's coming. Everyone be on guard. Everyone drew their swords and sabers. Just at this moment, a beast's roar reverberated in the air. The heaven beast revealed itself the moment it launched its attack. Wei Chou hastily drew his longbow, and an arrow left the bowstring with a whoosh. However, the heaven beast was originally attacking from the right. Just as it was about to step into the trap prepared by Wei Chou and the others, it suddenly stopped and dodged Wei Chou's arrow. Instead, it attacked from the left. Moreover, the corner of the heaven beast's mouth curled up slightly, as if it was laughing at Wei Chou and Lin Muyu's stupidity. Roar! The heaven beast roared and pounced over, covering at least 5 meters with this leap. Lin Muyu flipped over and raised her right arm. Demonic energy danced around her fist, and the second glory, which had the strongest single-target killing ability, was instantly launched. Bang! The heaven beast roared angrily. Although it had thick skin and thick flesh, it blocked the second glory's attack with its spiritual power. However, its body fell from the ground, crushing the trap set by Lin Muyu with a crash and falling down involuntarily. Lin Muyu leaped up with her sword in hand. Her battle boots stepped on the rock wall as she leaped up for nearly 10 meters. In the instant she spun around, she slashed out with her sword aura. With a kacha sound, the eagle beak-shaped rock above her was cut in half. In an instant, a huge rock weighing at least 10 tons fell from the sky, falling straight into the trap. Roar! The heaven beast opened its sharp claws and was climbing up when it saw a huge rock falling from the sky. Bang! The rock hit its head, and it immediately screamed in pain as it was pressed to the bottom of the trap by the huge rock. This was a trap that was nearly 10 meters deep. It wasn't easy to climb up after being pressed down by the rock. Great plan, madam. Wei Chou suppressed the raging waves in his heart and asked, "Is it dead?" "No, it's not dead." At this moment, the heaven beast was roaring angrily. Lin Muyu's spiritual perception could sense that its strength was only slightly weakened. It wasn't really crushed to death by the rock. If it could be crushed to death so easily, it probably wouldn't deserve to be called a divine beast. Let's go and leave this place while it's night. It still needs some time to struggle up. Yes. Wei Chou raised his demon-devouring bow and shot 7 to 8 arrows at the heaven beast's sharp claws. With an angry expression, he said, "This beast killed Han Xiao. I really want to tear it into pieces. Let's go. There will be opportunities in the future." Yes. The group rode away under the cover of the night, but Lin Muyu's mood didn't relax at all. She knew that the heaven beast wouldn't give up so easily. The heaven beast's mentality seemed to be similar to that of many scum humans. Because of a slight disagreement, it would want to kill someone. It was very rare to see a spirit beast that held a grudge and was so narrow-minded. After galloping for a day and a night, the four quickly arrived at the edge of the dragon-seeking forest. They were only half a day away from Lanyan City. However, the warhorses were so tired that they couldn't run anymore and needed to rest. Even Lin Muyu's warhorse was foaming at the mouth. If it didn't eat and rest, it would definitely die on the spot. This time, they chose a cave as their campsite. The original owner of the cave was a 700-year-old blind bear, which was killed by Wei Chou with a sword. They set up a pot and cooked the bear paw at the entrance of the cave. This time, Lin Muyu finally didn't feel like she was being watched. It seemed that the heaven beast was crushed by the huge rock and couldn't get up anymore. This was a good thing. However, just as she was enjoying the bear paw soup, that feeling came again. Damn it! Lin Muyu cursed angrily and put down the soup in her hand. At the same time, she extended her spirit pulse technique. This time, she could actually lock onto the heaven beast's position. It seemed that the heaven beast was too injured last time and could no longer hide its aura. However, with the heaven beast's strength alone, it could still easily kill Lin Muyu and the others. The heaven beast was hiding in the forest less than 100 meters in front of them. Under her spiritual perception, the heaven beast's aura had become much weaker. This was thanks to the arrows shot by Wei Chou with the demon-devouring bow. The demon-devouring bow refined the soul of a highly toxic spirit beast, so the continuous poison infection had reduced the heaven beast's strength to less than 50%. However, Lin Muyu was already injured, and her strength was also reduced to less than 60%. If they really fought, the Heaven Beast could easily kill them and leave after having a midnight snack. However, the Heaven Beast was too cautious. It was still waiting for an opportunity. Perhaps the Heaven Beast didn't even know that its location had been seen by Lin Muyu. Looking in her universe bag, there were still a few bottles of spirit concentration powder left. She took them out and said to Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the others, "Each of you drink 1 bottle of this medicine. Hurry up." What is this?" Wei Chou asked in astonishment. "Something that can save your lives. Hurry up." "Okay." The 3 of them completely believed in Lin Muyu's words and immediately drank it. Lin Muyu also drank 1 bottle. Then, she took out a bottle of Qingfeng drunk and poured it in front of the cave. The medicine dispersed with the wind, and the Heaven Beast within 100 meters couldn't avoid it even if it didn't want to. The Heaven Beast was cautious by nature, but it was at a disadvantage here. The longer it waited, the stronger the effect of the Qingfeng drunk would be. This was also the result that Lin Muyu wanted to see. After a full 4 hours, when Wei Chou and the others were about to fall asleep, the Heaven Beast finally moved and slowly walked out of the forest. Although it was still invisible, Lin Muyu's spiritual perception had already locked onto it. He immediately opened his eyes vigilantly and said, "Be careful, it's coming again." "Madam, what should we do?" Wei Chou's eyes were filled with despair. Lin Muyu smiled. "It's fine this time. You can blind its other eye first, and I'll chop it up." Chapter 188. Swoosh, swoosh, golden gourd vines rose from the ground and quickly bound the invisible Heaven Beast. The thorns on the gourd vines quickly pierced through the beast's fur, instantly rendering the Heaven Beast invisible. Whoosh! The poisonous arrow pierced through the air and directly shot into the Heaven Beast's other eye. Immediately, blood splattered and miserable howls sounded. This time, both of the Heaven Beast's eyes were blinded. With an angry roar, it fiercely pounced over. It was indeed a ferocious beast. After losing both of its eyes, it still wanted to kill people. Lin Muyu rushed out with her sword and used falling star steps. She suddenly jumped to the star position, and her figure instantly changed. She raised her left fist, which was surrounded by blood-red 7 luminaries' dark force. She suddenly punched the Heaven Beast's cheek. Bam! This punch was really powerful, and it forced the Sky Beast to retreat repeatedly. The Sky Beast's ferocious nature flared up, and it quickly pounced at Lin Muyu again. However, Lin Muyu dodged it, and the Sky Beast's upper and lower teeth snapped in the air. The strength and speed of this attack were really shocking, but it was clearly inferior to Lin Muyu's falling star steps. Woo-woo! The Heaven Beast shook its head violently. Only when it launched its attack did it realize that something was wrong with its body. It couldn't use all its strength, and it could only use less than 10% of its spiritual power. As a result, Lin Muyu was able to use 60% of her battle energy, so she naturally had the upper hand. Thanks to Qingfeng Zue, she wouldn't have such an advantage. The Heaven Beast was scheming, but it didn't expect Lin Muyu to be an expert in using poison. Swish! The dragon spirit sword slashed at the Sky Beast's neck in a fiery red arc. With just one slash, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. After being poisoned, the Sky Beast lost its spiritual power, which weakened its defensive energy layer a lot. With just one slash, the dragon spirit sword penetrated nearly 20 centimeters into the Sky Beast's flesh, revealing the bones. Roar! It roared and shook its head. Its tail turned into a sharp light that swept across, but Lin Muyu easily dodged it. To Lin Muyu, the Heaven Beast was too slow. Quickly changing the angle, Lin Muyu brazenly swung her sword again, this time on the same wound. Oh! The Sky Beast let out a blood-curdling howl as its spine was split in half. Bone fragments splashed everywhere. The sharpness of the dragon spirit sword was evident. Moreover, Lin Muyu had used all of her fighting energy to slash the Sky Beast, so her strength was naturally extraordinary. Roar! The dying Heaven's Beast roared angrily. It suddenly raised its head and launched a light energy shockwave. Lin Muyu hurriedly condensed the walls of the gourd to block the attack. The golden light kept bouncing off the sky beast's attacks. Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the others behind her also retreated far away. The battle in front of them was still beyond their reach. Rustle! She stepped on the ground with her battle boots, turned her body skillfully, and slashed for the third time with the sword in her hand. Crack! This time the sound was crisper. Lin Muyu had used all of her strength in this attack. The dragon spirit sword shone brightly and directly cut off the sky beast's head along with its bones. With a plop, the huge beast's head rolled on the snowy ground, but its body was still waving its sharp claws and swinging its tail in the air. This process lasted for nearly a minute before the headless body slowly fell to the ground and died. Oh my! Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the others were dumbfounded. They had seen many powerful spirit beasts, but they had never seen a spirit beast with such vitality. It's done. Lin Muyu sat on the snowy ground and held the sky beast's head with one hand. She sneered and said, "You beast injured the umbrella dragon mother and son and waited there for an opportunity. In the end, you targeted us and followed us from the forest of malicious spirits all the way to Lanyan City. You didn't expect to end up like this, did you?" Wei Chou walked forward and patted Lin Muyu's shoulder. He laughed heartily and said, "Commander, we finally don't have to die under the sharp teeth of the sky beast. It was the joy of escaping from death." Lin Muyu gritted his teeth in pain. Wei Chou's inadvertent slap landed on his wound. "I'm sorry, Commander. I got carried away and deserved to die." Wei Chou hurriedly cupped his fists and knelt in front of her. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. "Get up. It's okay. It wasn't easy to kill this sky beast. Everyone worked hard. But when we return to Lanyan City, we must not mention the sky beast and pretend it never happened. Just say that Han Xiao died in the line of duty while fighting the umbrella dragon." "Why is that, madam?" Xiahou Sang said blankly. "The sky beast is the nightmare of all cultivators. Madam, you killed the sky beast with your own strength and ingenious plan. You're the only person in Lanyan City who can do this. Why do you want to hide the truth?" Lin Muyu shook her head with a smile. "It's precisely because very few people can kill a sky beast that we have to keep our mouths shut. If the Divine Marquis Estate and Military Police Camp know that we killed the sky beast, believe it or not, Military Police Camp will definitely send people to investigate us. Maybe they'll even think of stealing the sky beast's spirit stone. It's always good for us to keep a low profile." Wei Chou cupped his fists and said, "Commander is wise. I agree." Xiahou Sang didn't really understand, but he still cupped his fists and said with a smile, "I, Xiahou Sang, am a boor and don't understand these things. But don't worry, Xiahou Sang will keep my mouth shut. Okay." Lin Muyu stood up and used the dragon spirit sword to cut open the sky beast's skull. Then, she placed a scalding light spirit stone into her Chenkuan bag. This was a sky beast spirit stone that had a lifespan of 13,400 years. Whether it was its age or quality, it was a rare item. As for how to use it, Lin Muyu already had a plan. She would use the sky beast spirit stone to refine the soul of the demon noise saber. Although the demon noise saber was a hidden weapon created by the famous General Feng Yicheng, it was only sharp. It was still a long way from being a real divine weapon. It could be used to kill the enemy on the battlefield, but if it encountered a real expert, the demon noise saber would probably be useless. This demon noise saber couldn't even cut through the sky beast's skull, which proved its lack of sharpness. Wei Chou used his long sword to cut the sky beast's fur, but he couldn't pierce through it. He couldn't help but be speechless and said, "My lady, the sky beast's fur seems to be a good treasure and can be made into good leather armor. However, my blade isn't sharp enough to skin it. Can I borrow your dragon spirit sword?" Lin Muyu raised her hand, and the dragon spirit sword fell into Wei Chou's hand. She smiled and said, "Be quick. Everyone have a good night's rest. We'll return at dawn tomorrow. We should be able to reach Lanyan City before noon." Yes. Not long after, Wei Chou peeled off the sky beast's fur. Since it was a very rare sky beast, he even broke the bones of the spirit beast, separated the meat from the bones, and put them into a bag. The heart and liver were also put into another bag. As for the skull, he dug out the brain. Xiahou Sang even laughed and said that since the sky beast was so smart, it would definitely become smarter after eating its brain. This made Lin Muyu smile. These people dared to eat anything. If they were born in modern times, they must be Cantonese compatriots or descendants of Bear Grylls. With the death of the sky beast, everyone's sense of crisis was relieved. This place was very close to Lanyan City, so the spirit beasts that appeared were only about 1,000 years old. Even if a group of wolves attacked, Wei Chou and Xiahou Sang were enough to resist. Therefore, Lin Muyu finally had a good night's sleep. When she woke up the next day, she found that it was snowing again. A simple tent was set up above her head. It was a tent that Wei Chou made for Lin Muyu by tying his and Xiahou Sang's Imperial Guards' cloaks together. Although it couldn't block the wind, it could block the snow. Lin Muyu had been too tired these days. Wei Chou and Xiahou Sang understood that, so they took care of the superior who had saved their lives more than once. In the morning, they had a delicious soup made from the sky beast's heart. Tasted pretty good. The sky beast had been at the top of the food chain all its life, but now it had become a piece of meat in someone else's soup pot. It was really miserable. After eating, they drank some wine and warmed up before setting off. They galloped at full speed and arrived at Lanyan City before noon. Lin Muyu had to personally go to Zetian Palace to hand in the order, and Wei Chou, Xiahou Sang, and the others had to follow because Han Shao had died on this mission. Every Imperial Guard was personally appointed by the Emperor, so every one of them was very important. The death of an Imperial Guard in the line of duty was a big deal in itself. Therefore, the military police battalion had to intervene in the investigation of Han Shao's death. Exhausted, he rode his horse into the side hall next to the Zetian Palace. Zetian Palace's supervisor, Che Qiong, was sipping wine with her eyes closed. Outside the door, Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said, "Master Che Qiong, the Eagle Nest camp is here to hand in the order. We have found the 6,000 years' worth of light spirit stones." "What so fast?" Che Qiong stood up and wiped the grease off his mouth. He smiled and said, "Madam Lin Muyu, please come in." Lin Muyu held a piece of black cloth in his hand, and on top of the cloth lay the spirit stone, which was glistening. He smiled and said, "As for the spirit beast's skin, we will prepare it in a while. Just send this over for now." "Okay, Commander. Thank you for your hard work." Che Qiong smiled and said to the group of people behind him who were drinking together, "Madam Yu Qiyen, the spirit stone has been found. Soon, you will be able to forge a divine weapon that Her Highness Yin will admire." Among the crowd, a man about 30 years old with an imposing appearance stood up and walked over. He grabbed the spirit stone and weighed it in his hand. He smiled and said, "There is a full 6,500 years of light spirit power stored. With this treasure, I will definitely be able to forge a long sword that will embarrass many blacksmiths in Lanyan City. Humph, Her Highness Yin will definitely be satisfied and look at me in a new light." Lin Muyu stood there quietly. Her shoulder was still wrapped in bloody gauze. Wei Chou frowned and said in a low voice, "Madam, this Yu Qiyen did not even look at you. He is extremely rude." Lin Muyu said lightly, "It's okay. Let's go back." "Yes." At this moment, a eunuch announced from outside, "Her Highness Qin Yin has arrived." Lin Muyu could not help but smile. Xiao Yin is really well informed. Wei Chou also smiled and said, "Yes, after all, you have been away from Lanyan City for 5 days. Chapter 189. Big Brother Yu. Qin Yin had an enchanting smile on her face. Her white cloak fluttered in the wind behind her, and the purple butterfly knot in her hair swayed beautifully. A group of dragon guards followed behind her, and Chu Huayin was among them. It seemed that Chu Huayin, the commander of the Dragon Guard Battalion, was personally on duty in Zetian Palace today. However, when Qin Yin's gaze landed on the wound on Lin Muyu's shoulder, she immediately became nervous. She walked forward and gently touched the bandage. With a concerned gaze, She asked gently, "Are you injured?" "Yes, it's just a minor injury." Lin Muyu smiled and said respectfully, "Xiaoyin, why are you here? I heard that you returned to Zetian Palace to hand in your orders, so I came to take a look." Qin Yin's snow-white hand covered the wound. Suddenly, she activated her power and a gentle fighting aura slowly seeped into the wound. In the next moment, she revealed a reproachful expression. "The wound is so deep, and you say it's a minor injury. What exactly hurt you?" Lin Muyu smiled awkwardly. "It's really nothing. I'm a royal guard and a martial artist. It's normal for me to be injured." Qin Yi knew that he didn't want to say it. Her gaze landed on Wei Chou. She asked, "What's your name?" "I'm Wei Chou." Wei Chou was extremely nervous. He could finally talk to the heir of the empire. Moreover, she was the #1 beauty of the empire. How could he not be nervous and excited? Qin Yi asked, "Wei Chou, how did my big brother you get injured?" Wei Chou was taken aback, and Lin Muyu hurriedly gestured for him to keep quiet. Wei Chou respectfully said, "Reporting to your highness, Lady Lin Muyu was injured during our battle with the Umbrella Dragon. Not only that, we also lost a member of the Royal Guard, Han Xiao." "So that's how it is." Qin Yi moved her red lips. Her eyes were filled with heartache as she said, "It's almost the end of the year. Furthermore, the Dragon Forest has been sealed off by the heavy snow. The Eagle Nest Battalion shouldn't have been sent out to patrol. Who issued this order?" Wei Chou was stunned. "I don't dare to say." At this time, Che Qiong, the supervisor of the Zetian Palace, was also drenched in cold sweat. He hurriedly walked forward, cupped his fists, and knelt on the ground. He said, "Your Highness, this is my order. This old subject has committed a capital offense. Please forgive me, Your Highness." "Supervisor Che Qiong?" Qin Yin raised her eyebrows. "What order did you give to the Eagle Nest camp?" "Before the end of this winter, obtain a light attribute spirit stone that is more than 6,000 years old." "Is this the reason why Lady Lin Muyu was injured?" Qin Yin was slightly annoyed. "Che Qiong, as the supervisor of the Zetian Palace, don't you understand how important the lives of the royal guards are? Father, the Emperor, has told you that the target spirit stone of the royal guards cannot exceed 6,000 years old. Otherwise, it is equivalent to sending them to their deaths." Che Qiong's entire body trembled. He said in a trembling voice, "Your Highness, this old subject knows his mistake. It's just that His Majesty invited the famous blacksmith Yu Qiyen from the Heaven's Pivot Province to forge a light attribute divine weapon for your Highness. It is also because of this that this old subject issued this order to the Eagle Nest camp. I hope that your Highness can forgive this old subject's capital offense." Qin Yin sniffled. The displeasure on her face lessened a little. She said calmly, "There can't be a next time. At least, you can't let Lin Muyu fall into trouble again. Otherwise, you can forget about being the supervisor of the Zetian Palace." "Yes, thank you, Your Highness." At this time, the extremely handsome Yu Qiyen walked over. He respectfully cupped his hands and knelt on the ground. "Your Highness, I am Yu Qiyen. I am the eldest son of the Yuqi family of the Heaven's Pivot Province. This time, I was invited by His Majesty to come all the way to the imperial capital. I am only willing to forge a sword that is at least profound grade rank 4 or above for your Highness. If it can make your Highness smile, I am willing to die 10,000 times." Ever since Qin Yin became an adult at the age of 16, she had always been regarded as the #1 beauty of the empire. The legend of her unparalleled beauty had long been known by the whole world. Therefore, the children of the major provinces naturally could not stop admiring this heir of the empire. The Yuqi family was also considered to be illustrious in the Heaven's Pivot Province. They had a wide influence. Yu Qiyen wanted to use this time's forging to get close to Qin Yin. In the face of Yu Qiyen's reverence, Qin Yin maintained the majesty and cultivation of the eldest princess. She gracefully bowed and said, "Then I will have to trouble Lord Yu Qiyen." Yu Qiyen smiled slightly. "Your Highness need not be angry at Lord Che Qiong. After all, he gave this order for your weapon. Moreover, The royal guards are loyal soldiers who are willing to die for the emperor. Even if they die in the line of duty for your highness' weapon, it would be an honor for them. Your highness, am I right? Qin Yin's pair of beautiful eyes flashed with anger. She still maintained a seductive smile. Lord Yuqian's words are not without reason. I understand. Rest assured, I will not pursue the crime of Supervisor Che Qiong's dereliction of duty. The Yuqi family was considered a large family in the Heaven's Pivot province. They had their own strengths in smelting iron, commerce, and so on. They even directly supplied weapons to the imperial army stationed in the Heaven's Pivot province. They also had very close relationships with many of the imperial army's generals. Qin Yin naturally could not offend the Yuqi family over such a small matter, so her words were still very appropriate. Yuqian respectfully cupped his hands and bowed again. Your Highness, this lowly one has already smelted the 10,000-year black iron for many days. I only lack a spirit stone. This spirit stone came at the right time. I will smelt this weapon tonight. If your Highness does not mind, why not write the 2 words Qin Yin for this lowly one? This lowly one can then engrave these 2 words on the blade. With your Highness's name engraved on it, this sword will certainly be passed down through the ages. Lin Muyu furrowed her brows and thought to herself, this Yuqian's flattery skills are really not ordinary. His demeanor is also very obedient and humble. If it was any other girl, they would definitely submit very quickly, right? Wei Qiu, on the other hand, sneered and said softly, what a good flatterer. Lin Muyu was shocked. Son of a B***tch. Wei Qiu, how could you be so honest? Your lowered voice cursing was almost the same decibel as the sound of an airplane engine. It was deafening. It would be difficult for Yuqian not to hear it. This was troublesome. As expected, Yuqian raised his sword-like eyebrows and looked at Wei Qiu, saying, this lowly one has always lived in Divine Shadow City in Dubhe Province. I did not know that the Imperial Guards of Lanyan City actually had such a rude person. Her Highness Qin Yin's beauty is unparalleled and her fame is well known throughout the world. Among the younger generation of the Empire, how many men do not admire Her Highness? How did my sincere heart become flattery in your mouth? Commander Lin Muyu, don't you think it's time for you to discipline your subordinates? Lin Muyu cupped her fists and said with a smile, all right, I will discipline them strictly when I return. I have troubled Lord Yuqi. He looked like a stinking hooligan, and Yuqian could not continue to blame him. However, Yuqian was, after all, a man of his word among the younger generation of the Dubhe province. How could he swallow this vexation? In a low voice, he mocked and ridiculed. I thought that the Imperial Guard were all heroes, but I didn't expect that they were just a bunch of rats who only know how to drive wolves and hunt dogs. What are you talking about? You dog! Xiahou Sang's explosive temper could not be tolerated in an instant. Lin Muyu said with a smile, I do not know what Lord Yuqi is saying. Why is the Imperial Guard a group of scoundrels who only know how to drive wolves and hunt dogs? Isn't that so? Yuqian sneered. His Highness's safety is protected by the Imperial Army. The Royal Guards are dispensable, and you Eagle Guards are only here to hunt some spiritual beasts for the royal family to pass the winter. If you can do it, I'm afraid the hunting dogs of the hunters can also do it. If you really have the ability, I'm afraid His Highness would not have to go through the danger of Deercry Park. Qin Yin's face was full of displeasure. Lord Yuqi, enough. Lin Muyu did not buy it. She reached out and blocked in front of Qin Yin. She looked at Yuqian and said indifferently, do you know how many Imperial Guards died in the danger of Deer Garden? Yuqian, who do you think you are? You only forged a few trashy weapons and you dare to be complacent here? Isn't the Yuqi family known as a weapon-forging family? Do you dare to compete with me? How? Yuqian laughed coldly. Competing in weapon forging? A boorish fellow like you, do you know how to control the fire and purify the iron? Lin Muyu smiled faintly and said, you and I will each forge a sword for His Highness tonight. The sword must be engraved with His Highness' name. We will test it in Zetian Hall tomorrow morning. Do you dare? Why not? What are the stakes? Yu Qian laughed coldly with a card up his sleeve. I will bet however much money you brought to Lanyan City this time. Yu Qian gritted his teeth and said, I didn't bring too many gold coins, but I brought 200,000 gold notes from the Imperial Bank of Gold. Do you dare to bet? Why not? Lin Muyu was even more confident and said, Then please bear witness to this bet, Your Highness. All right? Qin Yin looked at Lin Muyu with some doubt. She did not know that Lin Muyu knew how to forge weapons. Even Lin Muyu's weapons were bought by Qin Yin after he earned money from his alchemy skills. In truth, Lin Muyu did not want to stand out at first. He also wanted to hide the fact that he was good at forging, but Yu Qian was too overbearing this time. If he did not suppress his arrogance, the entire imperial army would be humiliated. Qin Yin sent them out of the hall and said with a slight frown, Brother Yu, are you really going to bet with Yu Qian? It is said that apart from a few old fellows from Tianshu province and Lingnan, there are very few people who can forge a sharper weapon than him. Don't worry. Lin Muyu looked at the attendant at the side and said, Bring a brush and ink. Have His Highness write his name for me. Yes, Your Highness. A few minutes later, the brush and ink arrived, but the empty Zetian Palace did not seem to have a place to place the paper. Placing the paper on the ground would be detrimental to Her Highness's dignity. Just as Qin Yin was looking for a place with her eyes wide open, Lin Muyu knelt on one knee and bent down. She said, Little Yin, place the paper on my back and write. Can I? Qin Yin giggled. Why not? All right then. Placing the paper on Lin Muyu's back with the armor as the base, Qin Yin dipped the paper in ink. Her left hand held the long sleeve of her right hand, and with a blissful smile on her face, she quickly wrote the book. Lin Muyu stood up and held Qin Yin's words in her hands. Blowing on the ink, she could not help but praise Qin Yin's handwriting. This semi-cursive script seemed to have the essence of Wang Shiji. In terms of calligraphy, Lin Muyu would probably never be able to match up to her in this lifetime. All right, we will see you tomorrow. Come before the sword contest. Got it. Chapter 190. After returning to the Eagle Nest camp in the afternoon, he immediately closed the gates and began forging. He still had some 10,000-year dark steel left from the Imperial Merchant Guild. Along with the Thunder Radiance Umbrella Dragon Spirit Stone, he believed that the forged weapon would not be inferior to Yu Qian's. At this time, he felt a slight itch on his shoulder. The wound had already begun to scab over. The effects of the first-rank healing medicine were indeed frighteningly good. Wang! The treasure refining cauldron was brought out and began to smelt the 10,000-year dark steel. Perhaps it was due to the increase in strength, but his battle aura had become purer. In less than an hour, nearly 30 kilograms of 10,000-year dark steel had been completely melted. Strands of starlight rose from the molten iron, and under the burning of the 6th-level heavenly flame, the purity was quickly refined. Not long after, the 30 kilograms of dark steel had become around 20 kilograms. This was also what Lin Muyu wanted to see. Although Qin Yin's cultivation was not ordinary, she was still a girl. The sword she used could not be too heavy, at least not as thick and heavy as her dragon spirit sword. She took out the 10,000-year umbrella dragon spirit stone and placed it into the treasure refining cauldron. After about 2 hours, the umbrella dragon spirit rushed out from the spirit stone and howled towards Lin Muyu. Dang! The treasure refining cauldron's flame barrier quickly repelled the umbrella dragon's attack. Lin Muyu pulled out the dragon spirit sword and slashed out with a roar. Immediately, a formless aura enveloped the area, and the sword light destroyed the umbrella dragon's beast spirit. The beast spirit's power immediately surrendered and slowly sank into the molten iron. This was considered complete. Lulu. Lin Muyu called out and said, I want to forge a sword for Xiaoyin. Help me choose a sword model that is suitable for girls, the more elegant and refined ones. Lulu chuckled. All right. Fortunately, I brought along the weapon database when I transmigrated with you. There are many sword models. Lulu will help you select a few for you to choose from. All right. Not long after, a series of light screens appeared in front of Lin Muyu. Lulu picked out more than a dozen elegant and exquisite sword models, and almost every one of them was very beautiful. Finally, Lin Muyu chose one of them. The blade was ordinary in width, but it was very thin. Moreover, the body of the sword was engraved with a simple flower totem, which matched the shape of the empire's purple Yinghua very well. Afterwards, Lin Muyu unfolded the handwriting of Qin Yin's name and said, "Lulu, scan the outline of these two words and engrave them on the blade near the hilt. Is that okay?" A piece of cake. Lulu's light form danced in the air above the paper, and very soon, the engraving of the two words Qin Yin appeared on the sword model. This sword was slowly taking shape. Lin Muyu closed her eyes and poured her spirit sense into the blade, starting to refine the compound edge. This kind of edge came from modern weapon forging techniques, but it was compatible with ancient weapon forging techniques. This was also one of the reasons why Lin Muyu's weapons were so sharp and sturdy. The dragon spirit had been tempered into a total of 10 compound edges, but perhaps because the iron and the purity of the refined soul weren't high enough, Lin Muyu couldn't continue after she had tempered 8 compound edges. However, it was still not bad. At the very least, this sword's grade was definitely far higher than the Prairie Fire sword. An entire afternoon was spent on this sword, and the forging was finally completed before dinner. Pucci. When Lin Muyu placed the sword into the pool, steam immediately filled the air. Lin Muyu reached into the water and fished out the sword. She smiled and said, "This sword does not have a name yet. Since little Yin's name is on the hilt, I will call it the Purple Ing sword." Lulu chuckled and said, A good name." Lin Muyu channeled her strength into the Purple Ing sword, and in the next moment, a golden dragon light appeared around the blade, proving that this sword had already entered the saint rank. "Congratulations, big brother. This is a 7th tier saint rank sword," Lulu said with a smile. Lin Muyu nodded with a smile. She found a scabbard that suited her ears better from the spare scabbard in the room and sheathed it with a clang. The sound of the sword ringing lingered for a long time. It was indeed a good sword. In fact, it wasn't much inferior to Qin Jin's Desolation sword. Next was the real highlight. It was time to reforge the demonic noise saber. Drawing out the demonic noise saber from the pouch at her waist, she spread her hands and gathered her fighting chi between the blades. She controlled the demonic noise saber to form a 4-edged flying saber. This was the true form of the demonic noise saber, and it was also the form with the strongest killing power. It had an extremely strong penetrative and destructive power. However, against a true expert, the demonic noise saber would be useless. Lin Muyu took a deep breath and threw the demonic noise saber into the cauldron. He sighed inwardly. "This is the famous weapon created by the famous General Feng Yi. What will it become in my hands?" At this time, Wei Chao's voice came from outside. "My lord, it's time for dinner. Would you like to come out and eat something?" "No need. Just leave dinner for me." "All right." Closing his eyes, Lin Muyu spread out his spiritual sense. He wasn't in a hurry to refine the demonic noise saber. He first sent his spiritual sense into the saber, analyzing its original design layer by layer. In the end, he discovered that the internal force of the demonic noise saber was extremely mysterious. There were layers upon layers, and the structure was actually somewhat similar to the molecular structure of a diamond. No wonder it was so sturdy. Lulu, record the original structure of the demonic noise saber. Later, we will refine it according to this method. Yes, big brother. At this time, Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile inwardly. Bringing Lulu along when he transmigrated was like bringing along a supercomputer. The reason why he was able to live so smoothly in Lanyan City was because of Lulu's contribution. The heavenly fire slowly lingered around the demonic noise saber. It didn't completely melt it, but refined and purified it layer by layer. It turned out that the person who created the demonic noise saber definitely didn't have such exquisite craftsmanship. In terms of purity, it was much inferior. Furthermore, Lin Muyu also discovered that the metal of the demonic noise saber was very mysterious. It didn't belong to the categories of dark iron, cold iron, or wrought iron. It was somewhat similar to the iron of the dragon spirit sword. It was an unknown metal brought by a meteorite from outer space, but its hardness and strength were undoubtedly strong. After about 3 hours of tempering, all the impurities in the demon noise saber had been purified. The entire demon noise saber had shrunk by almost a size. However, the blade was glowing, sharper, and more nimble. At this time, the crucial moment had arrived. It was time to refine the 13,400-year-old Sky Beast Spirit Stone. Lin Muyu took a deep breath. With a grave expression, she placed the Heaven Beast Spirit Stone into the crafting cauldron, as if she was facing a formidable enemy. Needless to say, the beast soul backlash from this spirit stone would definitely be extraordinarily strong. In fact, Lin Muyu was already mentally prepared to fight to the death. Moreover, the Heaven Beast was beheaded by her in 3 slashes, so its hatred for her wasn't small. It wouldn't be easy to make this ferocious beast's soul completely submit to her. However, if she couldn't truly tame the Heaven Beast's soul, then the plan to reforge the demonic noise saber would be considered a failure. Roar, roar! The faint roar of the Heaven Beast came from the Spirit Stone, sending a chill down Lin Muyu's spine. The heavenly fire in the crafting cauldron lingered around the Spirit Stone like a skirt, burning and refining it inch by inch. The Heaven Beast's Spirit Stone was extraordinarily stubborn. Fortunately, Lin Muyu's battle aura had become extremely pure under the refinement of the dragon-forging bone remnant scroll and was far more vigorous than cultivators of the same rank. Even so, it took her nearly 5 hours to successfully refine the Spirit Stone in the middle of the night. With a crackling sound, the outer layer of the Spirit Stone slowly peeled off under the scorching heat of the fire, revealing the golden layer of spirit energy within. "It's coming!" Lin Muyu's heart trembled. Sure enough, an invisible beast soul pounced toward her in a golden light. The Heaven Beast finally launched its counterattack. With a pong sound, it directly smashed the flame barrier of the crafting cauldron. However, Lin Muyu was already prepared. She opened her right hand, and the dragon spirit sword rotated rapidly. The dragon flame spiral break pierced the abdomen of the Heaven Beast's beast soul. Pong! Energy collided, and the dragon spirit sword directly pierced the beast soul's abdomen. It was deeply embedded and couldn't be pulled out. However, it seemed like it couldn't completely injure or tame this unyielding beast soul. Lin Muyu turned around and took a few steps back. She shook her arms, and an endless amount of dark force appeared on her arms. She punched out with both fists and shouted, "For Luminary's demon cry!" Boom! The mighty 7 Luminaries' dark force almost shattered half of the Heaven Beast's head, but the beast was still unwilling to surrender. With a low roar, it placed its claws on Lin Muyu's shoulders and opened its bloody mouth to devour Lin Muyu's head. "It's over. Am I going to die?" Lin Muyu was shocked, and her heart was filled with despair. At this moment, time seemed to stop, but the blood in Lin Muyu's body boiled like never before. The boiling power in her blood was about to burst out. Finally, with a clear dragon roar, a 5-clawed golden true dragon covered in raging flames broke out of her body and directly hovered around Lin Muyu's body. The golden dragon opened its mouth and roared at the Heaven Beast with the majesty of a king. Roar, roar. The dragon's roar was like an invisible domain attack, which prevented the Sky Beast from biting down no matter how hard it tried. The Sky Beast even showed a trace of fear when it saw the true dragon's constellation. It whimpered and crawled back into the crafting cauldron. Then, it knelt on the ground with its claws and slowly lowered its head. It actually showed a look of subservience. Lin Muyu was very pleased. Even a divine beast like the Heaven Beast couldn't do anything in front of a king true dragon. Was this the law of heaven and earth? The strong were respected, and the weak could only submit. While feeling proud, he didn't forget to pretend to be arrogant. "Evil creature, you won't know how powerful I am if I don't show my true appearance." Lulu giggled. "Brother, that's enough. Hurry up and refine it." Chapter 191. After taming it, The heavenly fire lingered around the beast's soul, slowly burning it into starlight that seeped into the demon noise saber. At the same time, Lin Muyu's heart stirred as if she could feel the heaven beast's submission to her. The demon noise saber trembled slightly, and with a hum, a golden light flew out from the demon noise saber and transformed into a miniature version of the heaven beast. It arrogantly entrenched itself beside Lin Muyu's leg and even raised its head to rub against his knee, acting like a spoiled child. Lin Muyu was secretly delighted. With a divine beast-level refined soul like the heaven beast guarding the demon noise saber, the lethality of this demon noise saber would definitely be incomparable to before. The tempering of the blade was abnormally smooth this time. It wasn't until Lin Muyu had tempered 12 compound edges that she felt she couldn't continue tempering. There was no doubt that this demon noise saber would be even sharper than the dragon spirit sword. The flames slowly dimmed, and the demon noise saber sank into the water to cool down for a moment. Lin Muyu picked it up again, and with a light grip, she could feel the resonance between the heaven beast soul and herself. Her soul and the demon noise saber's refined soul had already harmonized. In other words, they had already signed a soul contract. As long as this demon noise saber was in Lin Muyu's hands, its power would multiply. "What rank?" Lin Muyu asked. Lulu said, "3rd rank Saint grade. 1 rank higher than the dragon spirit sword." "Wow!" Lin Muyu grinned and said, "I wonder how powerful it is. Big brother will know once you try it." And this time there was no need to throw it. With a thought, Lin Muyu transformed her battle chi into an invisible force and infused it into the demon noise saber. The demon noise saber immediately flew out with a flash of golden light. Moreover, in its flight path, the demon noise saber actually became invisible with a shio sound, leaving only a sharp whistling sound. "He's invisible?" Lin Muyu was dumbfounded. Lulu said, "That's right, big bro. This demon noise saber is a light-type weapon because it refined the Sky Beast's soul. The Sky Beast's signature skill is to use the camouflage effect of the law of light to copy the light from its back onto its front, creating an instant invisibility effect. This demon noise saber is the same now. As long as Big Bro uses his battle chi, it can become invisible." Great. Lin Muyu was ecstatic. This was a true hidden weapon. Only an invisible hidden weapon could kill without leaving a trace. TSK, this demon noise saber seemed to have become a lethal weapon after being refined by the heaven beast. From now on, she had to be cautious when using the demon noise saber. If it wasn't a mortal enemy, she wouldn't use it, because with the demon noise saber, killing became much easier. It was said that the emperor and the princess would personally attend the sword duel conference today. So many commoners were hoping to catch a glimpse of the emperor and her highness. Of course, there were also some people with ulterior motives who wanted to kill the emperor and usurp the throne. Thus, the area within 200 meters of the viewing platform was heavily guarded. Only the descendants of the aristocratic families and members of the empire's army were allowed to approach. Commoners had to watch from a few hundred meters away. This was something that could not be helped. Wei Chou walked in front and shouted softly, "Please make way. Let us pass." This group of people were all wearing the armor of the royal guards. Logically speaking, Wei Chou could have shouted at the commoners to retreat, but he didn't do so. This was probably related to his birth as a commoner. Lin Muyu liked this feeling because she liked subordinates who didn't take advantage of their power to bully others. They walked all the way into Zetian Palace. The moment they arrived, Chu Huayin came over and smiled. You're finally here. Hurry up, Her Majesty, Her Highness, and that Yu Qiyan are all waiting for you." "Ah, is that so?" Lin Muyu smiled as she dismounted from her horse and entered Zetian Palace with Chu Huayin. In the main hall, all the civil and military officials were present. Feng Jixing, Zhen Yifan, Luo Xing, Qin Lei, and the other important civil and military officials stood closest to the throne. Lin Muyu was led by Chu Huayin along the red carpet in the middle and directly stood next to Feng Jixing. When he raised his head, he saw Qin Yin sitting on the throne beside the throne. She was dressed in a very ladylike princess dress, and she stuck out her tongue at him. She was originally a peerless beauty, But at this moment, her girlish demeanor made the group of officials fall head over heels for her. At this moment, no one doubted that Qin Yin wasn't the most beautiful woman in the empire. Qin Jin smiled and said, You're here? I heard that you made a bet with Yu Qian from the Yuqi clan yesterday to see who could forge a better weapon for Her Highness Yin. It just so happens that I'm here today to witness it with my own eyes. Lin Muyu nodded and took out the purpling sword wrapped in black cloth from her back. She smiled and said, This sword is called the Purpling Sword. If you like it, Xiao Yin will like it. Yu Qian laughed coldly and walked forward. He held a long sword in a white jade scabbard and said, Purpling Sword? The name isn't bad, but I don't know if its character is up to par. This Lingyu sword of mine, it's definitely 1,000,000 times better than the Purpling Sword. Is that so? How are we going to compete? Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Yu Qian seemed to want to humiliate Lin Muyu on purpose. He said, How about you and I, one person and one sword, fight with all our strength? Whoever's sword breaks or curls will lose. Lin Muyu, do you dare to bet with me? Why not? Come on. All right. Feng Jixing, Chu Huaying, Jin Yifan, Qin Lei, and the others all retreated to create an empty space. In addition, a few royal guards stood guard beside Qin Jin and Qin Yin to prevent them from getting caught in the crossfire. Clang! Yu Qian's sword was unsheathed. The blade was sparkling like jade, transparent and resplendent. It was indeed a good sword, but it seemed to be only a mysterious rank weapon. At this time, Yu Qian let out a low roar. Suddenly, true qi dispersed in all directions. He actually released his own martial spirit, which was in the form of a flame. For a moment, the spirit jade sword issued a clear sword cry. Looking at Lin Muyu, Yu Qian's eyes were full of disdain. What, you don't dare to draw your sword? Lin Muyu laughed inwardly and slowly untied the black cloth covering the sword. Although the scabbard was exquisite, it was plain and unadorned compared to the other's white jade scabbard. This made Yu Qian laugh coldly. This kind of trash actually dares? Clang! The purple-ing sword was unsheathed. Lin Muyu deliberately didn't release the light of the purple-ing sword Saint Beast. She held the sword with one hand and held it horizontally like a master. With a shout, her battle energy exploded and turned into a milky white cyclone that circled around her. The Holy Temple's battle robe fluttered in the wind. Her entire aura seemed to have changed in an instant. In an instant, the group of women participating in the court meeting, including Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, the First Lady, and the General's daughter, were all dumbfounded. Right now, Lin Muyu's strength and appearance were absolutely unparalleled in the Empire. In terms of looks, Lin Muyu had probably surpassed Chu Huaying, Feng Jixing, and Jin Feng. You has stepped into the second sky of the heaven realm. Feng Jixing laughed. Chu Huaying nodded. This brat is advancing really quickly. At this moment, an envoy dressed as a foreigner couldn't help but exclaim, The strength of the great Qin's royal guards is truly invincible. Qin Jin gently stroked his beard, his eyes full of praise and gratification. The son he wanted was someone like Lin Muyu. The Qin Empire didn't need sheep, it only needed lions. Come on! Lin Muyu looked at Yu Qian provocatively. Yu Qian knew that he couldn't compare to Lin Muyu in terms of strength, but a clash of weapons didn't rely entirely on strength. Lin Muyu's sword was simple and unadorned. Although it looked elegant and refined, it was definitely not useful. He still had a chance. Ha! With a loud shout, Yu Qian raised his sword and slashed forward. His true qi was instantly raised to the peak. Lin Muyu rushed forward, and in the blink of an eye, her battle energy surged into the sword. Immediately, a golden dragon coiled around the blade. In an instant, Yu Qian's face turned purple. He knew he had lost. Clang! They brushed past each other, and a clear sound rang out. Yu Qian's spirit jade sword had been broken into two under the head-on collision. How? How is this possible? The spirit jade sword is a mysterious grade 3rd stage. Yu Qian withered like a frosted eggplant. Chapter 192. Lin Muyu had broken the proud work of the weaponsmithing master, Wuxia, with a single strike. This was undoubtedly shocking news. Many important officials had thought that Lin Muyu, a member of the Imperial Guard, would definitely lose, but no one had expected that Lin Muyu would win so cleanly. The Yuchi family's treasured sword had not been damaged, but had been directly broken and destroyed. Mu has indeed won. Tang Xiaoxi stood behind Feng Jixing in her position as a princess. She was dressed in a fiery red embroidered princess robe and looked very beautiful. She was also the first person present to speak. Perhaps she was the only one who was full of confidence in Lin Muyu. Beside the emperor's throne, Qin Yin also covered her mouth and laughed. Imperial father, you are the witness. Shouldn't you announce the results? Qin Jin recovered from his shock and smiled. As the witness, I now announce that Lin Muyu has won the competition. Then, according to the previous bet, Lord Wuxia will have to pay the Imperial Guard, Lin Muyu, 200,000 Jin Yin coins. I heard that the Yuchi family has been operating in Heaven's Pivot Province for many years. 200,000 Jin Yin coins should be a small token, right? As your majesty has decreed. Wuxia's face was deathly pale. After he respectfully cupped his fists and bowed, he took out a gold note from his bosom. The amount of 200,000 Jin Yin coins was clearly written on it. It was also stamped with Wuxia's handprint and personal signature, as well as the Yuchi family's seal. With this, the gold note was in effect. He presented the gold note with both hands and said with a cold look in his eyes, Lin Muyu, this is what you deserve. Lin Muyu took the gold note and stuffed it into her cosmos sack. She cupped her fists and smiled. Thank you, Lord Wuxia, for your reward. Emperor Qin Jin laughed and said, You may enter the ranks. Yes. Originally, Lin Muyu did not have the qualifications to be one of the ministers in the imperial court. After all, he was only a mere level 6 Xiang Dragon General. Those who were able to stand here were at least of the 3rd grade. However, today was the day of the sword duel tournament, so he was exempted from being a military general. There were 2 people standing behind Qin Lei. One was the Dragon Guard commander Chu Huaying. The other was the Tiger Guard commander Zhuge Yun. Hence, there was still one more position that belonged to Lin Muyu, the Eagle Guard commander. But just as Lin Muyu was about to walk over, Wuxia, who was behind her, growled, Lin Muyu, wait, what's wrong? He slowly turned around. There was a trace of doubt in Wuxia's eyes as he said, According to what I know, a weapon that can break a profound rank 3rd level sword should at least be a saint rank weapon. Just now I saw the saint beast soul of your sword. Where did you get this sword from? Logically speaking, with your age, it's impossible for you to comprehend the craftsmanship of fire and iron and forge a saint rank weapon, right? He knew that this matter would not be resolved so easily. If he did not give an explanation, Lin Muyu would definitely not be able to get past this obstacle. Hence, he cupped his fists and smiled, saying, Not long ago, a hermit who was well-versed in the art of blacksmithing passed by Lanyan City and just happened to stop at the back of Eagle Nest Mountain. Thus, I have some relations with him, so I bought the materials and asked him to forge this purple ing sword for me to present to Her Highness. Lord Yuchi, our bet was only to see who could take out a stronger sword. It did not say that I had to forge it myself. I see. Wuxia actually laughed. He must have felt that he was still the strongest blacksmith of the younger generation in the world. Hence, he regained some confidence and cupped his fists with a smile, saying, Although Lord Lin Muyu played a trick, but I Wuxia am willing to concede defeat. These 200,000 Jinin coins shall be considered as a gift to the Eagle Nest camp. Heh. Thank you, Lord Yuchi, for your generosity. Lin Muyu walked forward with the purple ing sword in her hand. She looked up at Qin Jin from afar and said, Your Majesty, Lin Muyu hereby presents this 7th rank saint rank purple ing sword to Her Highness. I hope that Your Majesty will allow it. Qin Jin smiled happily and said, Of course, Xiao Yin is your sister, so it is only right that you, as her brother, should do the same. Xiao Yin, hurry up and accept your big brother Yu's gift. Qin Yin was even more overjoyed. She walked to the edge of the golden steps and reached out to hold the tassels under her princess robe. She walked down the steps in a very ladylike manner. Her beautiful eyes were in high spirits as she looked at Lin Muyu with a smile. Her eyes were filled with deep affection. She raised her face to look at Lin Muyu, and her facial features suddenly became restrained. She obediently made a face at Lin Muyu and said with a smile, "Big brother Yu, thank you for your purpling sword." Looking at the eldest princess who was as beautiful as a fairy, Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel her heart sway at this moment. She presented the sword and said, "Your Highness, please examine it and see if you like it." Qin Yin took the sword and pulled it out of the sheath with a dang sound. The blade was surrounded by a faint flame dragon pattern, and the overall design was very exquisite and elegant. Near the hilt of the sword, the two words Qin Yin were engraved. That was her own handwriting. Under the surging power of the sword spirit, a flame lingered around the engraved words, and a flame actually appeared 1 centimeter away from the blade. Qin Yin. It was very beautiful, and after cutting Yu Qiyan's sword in half, there wasn't even a scratch on the edge of the sword. The 8 compound edges were not fake. "Do you like it?" Lin Muyu asked with a smile. Qin Yin sheathed the sword and caressed the sheath lovingly. She said, I like it. Thank you, big brother Yu. As long as you like it, I'm going to join the ranks. In a while, big brother Yu, do your best at the sword duel tournament." "Got it. Thank you, your highness, for your encouragement." Lin Muyu smiled lightly and returned to Qin Lei's back. He didn't show that he was overly intimate with Qin Yin in the hall. After all, this wasn't a good thing. Qin Yin was her highness, and who knew how many princes and nobles were thinking about this heir to the empire. The closer Lin Muyu and Qin Yin were, the more enemies they would make. With the current situation, Lin Muyu didn't want to attract more jealousy and hatred. After all, his strength was still not enough. If it was the Longdan army camp that had developed and was able to have 100,000 elite troops, then Lin Muyu could be unscrupulous. Before his strength was not enough, he should first endure. This was the first principle that Lin Muyu learned in this world. Qin Yin held the Xin sword and returned to the emperor's side. Qin Jin smiled slightly and said, "Today is a big day. The sword duel tournament that is held once every 3 years. All the outstanding talents of the empire will participate in this banquet. I wonder who will get the dragon talisman this year. Let's go. My beloved subjects, follow me out of the Zetian Palace and to the viewing platform." "Yes, your majesty." Qin Jin shook his arms and walked down from the throne. Qin Yin chased after him and held her father's arm. Under Qin Lei's gaze, Lin Muyu and Chu Huaying protected the emperor and the princess on both sides. Qin Yin turned around and saw Lin Muyu. She couldn't help but smile. "Big brother Yu, your injuries haven't completely healed. Don't force yourself in today's sword duel tournament. Don't worry. My injuries have more or less recovered." That's good." At the side, Tang Xiaoxi quickly caught up and said with a smile, "Mu, if you meet my older brother, Tang Bin, you must be careful. His fire fox seal has already been cultivated to the 7th layer. His power is extremely shocking." Xiaoxi's older brother? Lin Muyu was stunned. At the side, Qin Yin smiled and explained, "In the 7 Seas Tang sect, Tang Lan has a total of 3 sons. The eldest son only has a daughter, Xiaoxi. The second son has 2 sons, Tang Bin and Tang Lu. Duke Lan's 3rd son also has a son and a daughter. The son is called Tang Tian and the daughter is called Tang Wei. It can be said that in the 7 Seas Tang sect, Tang Bin, Tang Lu, and Tang Tian are all important competitors for Xiaoxi. It is still unknown who will inherit Duke Lan's title in the end." Lin Muyu faintly smiled and said, "According to my understanding, in the Qin Empire, the inheritance of titles is passed down to the eldest and not the youngest. If this is the case, Xiaoxi is the eldest son's daughter, so her chances of inheriting the title should be the highest, right?" Tang Xiaoxi shook her head and said with a smile, "It's not like what you think, Mu. The The Seven Seas Tang sect cultivates a secret art called Fire Fox Seal. The Fire Fox Seal has a total of 9 layers. It is the Tang sect's most overbearing secret art. Cultivating it with the Firefox martial soul will yield twice the results with half the effort. So, generally speaking, whoever has the strongest Firefox seal will have the most qualifications to become the successor of the Tang sect. As for me, I have almost no chance. Why? Lin Muyu was puzzled. Tang Xiaoxi giggled. Because, since ancient times, the Firefox seal is powerful and overbearing. All the females in the Tang sect are unable to cultivate it. Only the males can cultivate it. So that's how it is? Lin Muyu nodded and said with a smile, "Then Xiao Shi, my condolences?" Tang Xiaoxi giggled. "I don't care who the successor of the Tang sect is. It's fine as long as grandfather dotes on me." Lin Muyu didn't say anything else. Perhaps it was better to be like Tang Xiaoxi, who had no desires or demands. Outside the imperial city, when Qin Jin, Qin Yin, Tang Xiaoxi, Qin Lei, and the other members of the imperial family stepped out of the Zetian Palace Hall's entrance, the commoners in the distance cheered. Everyone squeezed together, wanting to see the emperor and her highness' true faces. "Be on guard, protect the safety of his majesty and her highness," Qin Lei shouted in a low voice. Immediately, a group of dragon guards and tiger guards spread out one after another, forming a 4-sided formation to protect the emperor, the princess, and the civil and military officials. However, these imperial guards didn't use a shield formation, because this would make it seem that the emperor wasn't close to the commoners. However, looking at the sea of people and the cheers in the distance, Lin Muyu couldn't help but feel a little astonished. It was really very rare to have such popular support. As the commander of the Eagle Guards, Lin Muyu's position was getting further and further away from the emperor and the princess. Instead, she was walking side by side with Feng Jixing. Both of them had long swords strapped to their waists, their hands on the hilts of their swords, and their heroic white robes fluttered in the wind, looking very beautiful. Looks like His Majesty can also be considered to have the support of the people, Lin Muyu said softly with a smile. The corner of Feng Jixing's mouth curled up, and he said, "Ever since His Majesty ascended the throne, it can be said that he has proclaimed benevolence and virtue to the world. Although he fought in the north and south in the early years, he never raised taxes. Under the protection of the imperial capital, the weather in the 8 northern provinces is smooth, and there hasn't been any war for more than 10 years. The commoners live and work in peace and contentment, so naturally they will support this good emperor." "I see." Lin Muyu wanted to say something, but she stopped herself. In fact, everyone understood that Qin Jin was more than benevolent, but lacked the authority of a monarch. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such undercurrents surging in the imperial army. Chapter 193. The sky-bearing empire is blessed with good weather. The empire will prosper, and the 4 seas will be at peace. Today, in accordance with the imperial edict of the Radiant Emperor, in order to demonstrate the strength of the empire's martial prowess, and for the prosperity of the empire's talents, this sword duel assembly will be held to determine the champion. Those who are able to obtain the top 10 positions will be rewarded. This competition will be watched by His Majesty and Her Highness Qin Yin. There are a total of 47 participants, and they have gathered the talents of the 12 provinces. After the eunuch finished reading the imperial edict, 2 royal guards immediately carried a huge wooden board and placed it on the viewing platform. On the board, there were names written in golden paint. There were a total of 47 participants, and the names of the participants were displayed in front of her. Lin Muyu looked at it from afar. Fortunately, her opponent in the first round wasn't Chu Huaying, Feng Jixing, or Qin Lei. Instead, it was a person called Ouyang Jingtian. She didn't know where he came from, but she just needed to beat him up. Dong, dong, dong. A battle drum made of cowhide thundered, and a formless killing aura instantly filled the viewing platform. All the participating martial artists had already gathered around the viewing platform, and they were verified by the officials of the Zetian Palace Hall. After that, they waited for the start of the competition. This process was slightly tedious, but Lin Muyu had a lot of patience. She sat on the cold stone steps and looked at the officials around the viewing platform with an indifferent gaze. The viewing platform surrounded the stage in a fan shape. Qin Jin, Qin Yin, and the rest were sitting in the center under the protection of the royal guards and Chu Chu. On the two sides were the viewing areas for the officials and nobles of the empire. Many noble women were wrapped in fox fur scarves, and their bodies were trembling as they watched the battle. They even ordered their servants to serve them fruits and fragrant tea from time to time. Felt like an arena. Lin Muyu couldn't help but snicker. She had accidentally become a performer to please others. She really didn't expect it. Not long after, the eunuch announced with a loud voice, "The sword duel assembly has officially begun. The first round, the first group, will be led by the commander of the Imperial Army, Feng Jixing, against the expert from Swift White Province's Sunset City, Luo Jingtian." Feng Jixing lifted his long saber and leapt onto the stage. His eyes were indifferent. The wind-cutter saber was surrounded by a dense purple radiance. Streaks of lightning darted around the saber. Feng Jixing had already released his purple electric flame wolf martial soul the moment he stepped onto the stage. It was clear that he was going all out. Although Luo Jingtian was below the age of 35, he already had a beard. He cupped his fist and smiled. "I never thought that I would encounter General Feng in the first round. This subordinate is in trouble." Feng Jixing faintly smiled. "General Luo Jingtian, welcome to Lanyan City for a one-day tour." Luo Jingtian. The battle was very simple. Feng Jixing used 3 moves of the wind blade technique to blast Luo Jingtian and his sword out of the stage. Luo Jingtian looked extremely miserable as he cupped his fist and said, "See you." Feng Jixing also cupped his fist and said respectfully, "Thank you for letting me win." On the viewing platform, Lin Muyu curled her lips and said, "Big Brother Feng has become even more powerful after stepping into the second heavenly stage." Qin Lei sat at the side and said, "This old brat Feng Jixing's blade technique is indeed the best in the imperial capital. Luo Jingtian's defeat in 3 moves is also within expectations. On the other hand, Chu Huaiming, you actually advanced to the next round without a draw. You are really envious of others." Chu Huaiming was in a daze as he looked into the distance. In the direction he was looking at, there was also a beautiful girl staring at him in a daze. It was none other than Jin Xiang, who was sitting beside Jin Yifan and Jin Feng, the eldest daughter of the divine marquis residence. Lin Muyu couldn't help but smile. Someone's mind has already wandered off. At this moment, Feng Jixing also walked over with his blade in hand. He looked at Chu Huaiming and revealed a disdainful expression. He smiled and said, "Our brother Chu doesn't have much future prospects in this lifetime. This kind of love really gives me goosebumps." Qin Lei grinned. Lin Muyu also laughed. At this moment, another person walked over. It was Qin Yen, who was wearing the Saint Sanctum's Gold Star instructor robe. "Hi, Big Brother Lin Muyu is also here." "Ah, Yen is here." Qin Lei smiled and said, "How long until your turn?" "I'm in the 7th group, no hurry." A group of experts gathered together was especially eye-catching. Many of the young ladies from the large clans on the viewing platform looked over here. Perhaps many of the young ladies' sweethearts were in this group. No matter if it was the handsome Chu Huaiming, or the unruly and handsome Feng Jixing, or even the heaven-gifted Lin Muyu, they were actually the targets of many young ladies' hearts. It was just that this group of fellows seemed to have no interest in love, and didn't even look those noble young ladies in the eye. In the 3rd group of the first round, Qin Lei went up. Having already stepped into the 2nd level of the heavenly realm, he was already incomparably tyrannical. Furthermore, he possessed the 1st-grade god-binding chains. In just 1 round, he used the splitting lightning light slash to directly defeat his opponent. If he hadn't retracted his attack quickly, that brat's head would have already landed on the ground. Not long after, Qin Yen took the stage. His dragon-scale armor spirit was extremely gorgeous. His opponent's fierce attacks for 7 or 8 rounds didn't injure him in the slightest. On the contrary, Qin Yen played down 2 quick attacks and directly made his opponent concede. 7 Seas City's Luo Bin is going up. Feng Jixing smiled faintly. The Tang Sect's Fire Fox Seal can be said to be an absolute art. If you meet Tang Bin, you have to be careful. 3 years ago in the Sword Battle Assembly, he almost used the Fire Fox Seal to defeat me. This time, I heard that Tang Bin's Fire Fox Seal has already been cultivated to the 7th level. 3 years ago, he was only at the 5th level. This year will definitely be even more frightening. Lin Muyu, Chu Huaiming, and Qin Yen nodded together. Qin Lei grinned and said, "This kind of person can only run amok in 7 Seas City. Coming to the imperial capital, there are no less than 10 people who can defeat Tang Bin. Feng Jixing, why do you need to boost his morale?" Feng Jixing couldn't help but smile, but didn't argue. It wasn't excessive for Qin Lei to say that. After all, he had the qualifications to say that. On the tournament stage, Tang Bin was unarmed, his face full of arrogance. His opponent was a general carrying a battle axe. This general came from Tongtian province. The golden-purple flower at his collar glowed with a dazzling luster, and there were 2 golden hexagrams on his back. He was actually a captaincy-ranked, high-ranking military officer. Tang Bin cupped his fists and smiled. "General Shi, I've learned a lot." The general didn't back down. Without saying anything, he waved his battle axe and rushed over with a roar. The axe glowed with a faint glow of Do Qi, and with a swing, it carried a murderous aura. With a simple and violent arc, it chopped towards Tang Bin's chest. Just as he was about to succeed, Tang Bin suddenly leaned back. It was actually a beautiful iron bridge. Roar! The Fire Fox martial spirit cried out, and flames began to linger on his battle boots. Tang Bin took the opportunity to kick the opponent's wrist, and with a wong sound, the battle axe flew out of the opponent's hand. Tang Bin then flipped himself up, and with his feet on the stone floor, he punched out several times with his fists. The attacking general could only raise his arms to block, and the pong-pong-pong sounds of battle chi colliding could be heard. The general could only raise his arms to block, and the pong-pong-pong sounds of do chi colliding rang out. Both of them were at the first level of the heavenly stage, but the general didn't even seem to have the strength to retaliate. Just as his defense was broken, Tang Bin suddenly opened his right palm, and a Fire Fox imprint gushed out from his palm. He shouted in a low voice, "Heaven Rush Imprint! Wang!" Flames erupted, and a fiery imprint directly penetrated the general's chest armor. Immediately, the general retreated a few steps, his face pale as he knelt on one knee. The do chi on his body had actually been scattered in one blow. In a trembling voice he said, I lost. The Fire Fox imprint indeed lives up to its name." Tang Bin cupped his hands and said with a smile, "Thank you for letting me win." Lin Muyu frowned and said, "What a mysterious Fire Fox imprint. His power seems to be very violent. If Xiao Shi could also master the Fire Fox imprint, I wonder who would be stronger than Tang Bin." Feng Jixing said with a smile, "Princess, she is a girl. I'm afraid she will never be able to practice the Fire Fox imprint." Maybe. Lin Muyu looked at Tang Xiaoxi from afar, only to find that Tang Xiaoxi was also looking at her. Lin Muyu rubbed her nose and smiled at Tang Xiaoxi from afar. Immediately, Tang Xiaoxi's face turned red, and she hurriedly lowered her head. She didn't dare to look at this smelly hooligan who dared to tease her. In the 13th round, it was finally Lin Muyu's turn to fight. Ouyang Jingtian is a famous expert in the Five Valleys city of the Cangnan province. You have to be careful. I heard that Ouyang Jingtian has exquisite swordsmanship. Feng Jixing kindly reminded. Lin Muyu nodded and smiled. "Thank you, Big Brother Feng, for the reminder," Qin Lei said with a smile. "Feng Jixing, don't worry about you. Don't you know his strength? Ouyang Jingtian is nothing. He can only be considered unlucky to meet you." At this time, the eunuch walked onto the stage and announced loudly, "Next group, the commander of the Eagle Nest camp of the Imperial Army, Lin Muyu, will fight against the swordsmanship expert from the Cangnan province, Ouyang Jingtian. Lin Muyu carried the dragon spirit sword and went onto the stage. Immediately, many people on the viewing platform exclaimed, "Wow, that's Lin Muyu, the Imperial Guard that rescued the Emperor in Dear Songyuan. How can such a handsome gigolo be so powerful?" Unfortunately, Lin Muyu's spiritual pulse technique was so powerful that she could hear the words of this group of people. For a moment, she felt very depressed. She could only use her strength to prove that she was not a gigolo. Ouyang Jingtian was a 30-years-old man. He was dressed in light clothes. His fingers were long and slender. He held a long sword that was shining brightly. His whole body was brimming with the demeanor of a grandmaster-level expert. Of course, this was only limited to the Cangnan province. As for the Lanyan city, no matter how powerful his swordsmanship was, could it be more powerful than the Sword Elder? Lin Muyu's 4-elemental imperial sword was inherited from the Sword Elder. Clang! Ouyang Jingtian pulled out his long sword and said with a faint smile, "Madam Lin Muyu, I, Ouyang Jingtian, have learned a thing or two." Lin Muyu held her long sword and cupped her fists. "Please enlighten me." "Xiao!" Ouyang Jingtian thrust his sword forward. The blade was surrounded by faint true qi. This was an expert who had not stepped into the heaven realm. For a moment, Lin Muyu changed her mind and directly used the scabbard to block. The moment Ouyang Jingtian's long sword was knocked away, Lin Muyu swept her long sword with the scabbard. Ouyang Jingtian spun his body in the air and did a somersault. He thrust his sword 4 times in the air. It was very swift and fierce. Lin Muyu directly called out her martial soul. The wall of the gourd rose. At the same time, she raised her arm. The dragon spirit sword with the scabbard rotated rapidly in the air. Ding, ding, ding sounds were heard several times. She deflected Ouyang Jingtian's sudden thrust. She felt a burst of numbness in her arm. Ouyang Jingtian could be ranked among the experts of swordsmanship. The strength of his sword qi should be the limit of an Earth Realm expert. Chapter 194. Clang! The scabbard knocked away her opponent's blade. Lin Muyu thrust her long sword forward, and the dragon soul sword, along with the scabbard, pierced towards Ouyang Jingtian. The battle energy around the scabbard formed a spiral of flame energy. Ouyang Jingtian was shocked. He hurriedly moved his sword and shook his wrist. Suddenly, the sword twisted like a poisonous snake and twisted around the dragon soul sword. Twisting sword technique. In an instant, Lin Muyu's battle chi was like a clay ox entering the sea. Naturally, Lin Muyu's attack was ineffective. However, he wasn't in a hurry. He suddenly loosened his grip and the dragon spirit sword was seized by Ouyang Jingtian's sword. At the same time, Lin Muyu's fist was surrounded by battle chi as he punched his opponent's shoulder. Ouyang Jingtian hurriedly turned his body to dodge. At the same time, he swept his sword horizontally. Hua! Lin Muyu bent her body and dodged the attack. At the same time, she raised her finger, and lightning flashed between her finger and the dragon spirit sword. The seized dragon spirit sword spun around as if it had a mind of its own and heavily stabbed Ouyang Jingtian's back with its scabbard attached. Bang! Ouyang Jingtian had suffered a heavy blow. How could he withstand it? Blood was already flowing out of his mouth. His eyes were filled with shock as he looked at the dragon's spiritual sword that had returned to Lin Muyu's hand. I lost. He stood still and said, Imperial Guard Lin Muyu is worthy of her reputation. I Ouyang Jingtian am convinced. But, is it the Imperial Sword technique? Lin Muyu nodded. It is indeed a kind of Imperial Sword technique. Thank you for letting me win. Thank you for your advice. After the winner was decided, Lin Muyu's name was immediately placed in the top 24. When she returned to the viewing platform, Chu Huaying, Feng Jixing, and the others congratulated her. Although she was only in the top 24, Lin Muyu had already made a name for herself in public. There wasn't much suspense in the following matches. Jinfeng, Yuan Lian, Ling Feng, and the other elites of the imperial capital easily won their matches one after another. Not long after, the names of 24 people were listed on the wooden board. They were painted with golden paint and looked to be sparkling under the sunlight. The matches were still going on. There were fewer and fewer people left in the selection area of the viewing platform. There were only 24 people left, and many of them were familiar with each other. Jinfeng turned a blind eye to Lin Muyu, Feng Jixing, and the rest. His resentment was too deep. On the other hand, Tang Bin from the Seven Seas Tang sect was able to chat with Jinfeng, Yuan Lian, and the rest. It was as if they were all graduates from the imperial capital's Ares College and could be considered classmates. Yuan Lian held a thin sword in his hand, a faint smile on his face. Young Lord Tang's fire fox seal has already reached the 7th layer. This is truly worthy of celebration. It seems that the future leader of the Seven Seas Tang sect will be none other than young Lord Tang. Tang Bin smiled. You flatter me, Major General Yuan. I, Tang Bin, am not worthy. I only hope to be in the top 10 of this tournament. With the cultivation of the 7th level of the fire fox seal, you will definitely be in the top 10. Young master need not worry. Ha! Ling Feng, who was at the side, had a tinge of worry as he said, this year's sword dueling tournament is not going to be simple. Let's see how the next round goes. Once they meet Feng Jixing, Qin Lei, Chu Huaying, and Lin Muyu, these 4 troublesome fellows, I'm afraid it will not be easy for anyone to win. Young Duke Jinfeng, what do you think? Jinfeng's expression was calm, and he said, I'll just do my best. As for the outcome, let the heavens decide. Hey, young Duke has a good cultivation base. However, I heard that when you were a deacon in the Divine Temple, you once sparred with Lin Muyu and the outcome was not decided. It seems that Lin Muyu does have some ability. It was clear that Jinfeng was at a disadvantage in that sparring match. In an instant, Ling Feng's words caused Jinfeng's face to turn ashen. He snorted, that Lin Muyu is just an opportunistic piece of trash. Just wait and see. Heh, we are naturally waiting to watch a good show. Oh right, I heard that young Duke's elder sister, the beauty ranked 3rd on the beauty list, Cheng Xiang, has recently been in close contact with one of the imperial guards, Chu Huaying. It seems that the Divine Marquis residence also values the status of the imperial guards and wants a good marriage. Ling Feng said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. In an instant, Jinfeng was infuriated. He suddenly pulled out half of his sword and shouted, Ling Feng, if you dare to say another word, I will cut off your tongue and eat it with wine. Do you believe me? Who does Chu Huaying think he is? How can a lowly commoner like him be worthy of my elder sister? My elder sister is just bewitched. After some time, she will naturally realize that Chu Huaying is not worthy of her. Is that so? Ling Feng laughed and cupped his fists. I misspoke just now. I hope young Duke can forgive me. Humph. While Jinfeng, Ling Feng, Tang Bin and the others were chatting happily, Chu Huaying, Feng Jixing, Qin Lei, Qin Yan and the others were listening from afar. Their voices were too loud. It was hard not to hear them. Feng Jixing wiped his windcutter blade and said with a faint smile, the Divine Marquis residence, the Protector General's residence and the Stabilizing General's residence have been fighting openly and secretly in the capital. It is rare for these people to be able to talk together. How hypocritical. As he spoke, Feng Jixing raised his head to look at Chu Huaying and said, do you really like Zhenxiang? Chu Huaying was stunned and said, Miss Zhenxiang's talent and appearance have indeed moved my heart. Of course, I really like her. Why will General Feng object to us? Although, I also know that it will be difficult. Feng Jixing smiled. Life is short, and it's not easy to meet a woman who can move your heart. Since you like her, you should be courageous enough to pursue her. As your friend, I will naturally support you. However, the relationship between the Divine Marquis residence and the Royal Guards is very tense. I'm afraid this path will not be easy. Chu Huaying's expression dimmed. I know. Feng Jixing smiled and said, what do you guys think about old Chu and Zhenxiang? Qin Lei said, I don't understand matters between men and women. Qin Yan said, elder brother doesn't understand, and I don't want to understand. Feng Jixing was speechless. You, what do you think? Lin Muyu laid on the cold stone steps and said slowly, just like what brother Feng Jixing said, if you like someone, you should courageously pursue them. Don't let yourself regret it. However, brother Chu Huaying really needs to protect himself. Zhang Yifan is ruthless, who knows what he will do. Chu Huaying nodded. Yes, I know what I am doing. At this time, the second round of matchups had already been decided. There were a total of 12 groups, and this time it was considered a tit-for-tat. Several groups were actually strong opponents. Feng Jixing versus Tang Binlin Muyu versus Lingfeng Chu Huaying versus Xinfang. As for Qin Lei and Qin Yan, they were quite lucky. The opponents they faced were not too strong, and some had not even stepped into the heavenly realm. After all, it was not easy to reach the heavenly realm. There were not many people who could step into the heavenly realm before the age of 35. Therefore, in the eyes of others, Lin Muyu, Chu Huaying, and Feng Jixing were all rare geniuses. Lifting his sword, Feng Jixing patted the dust off his battle robe and smiled. I'm going. Be careful. Tang Bin's fire fox seal is very powerful, Chu Huaying warned. Don't worry, he is not my opponent. Feng Jixing's confidence was bordering on arrogance, but no one doubted his arrogance. He was the youngest commander in the entire empire, and he was in charge of the capital's 30,000 imperial guards and close to 20,000 scattered troops. His own strength was unquestionable. On the other hand, Tang Bin had a calm expression. Standing on the tournament stage, he cupped his fists and smiled. Tang Bin has experienced Commander Feng Jixing's brilliant moves. I didn't expect that we would meet so early in this year's sword duel tournament. What a coincidence. Feng Jixing smiled slightly. Please show mercy, young Master Tang Bin. Don't let me lose too badly. You must be joking. Come on. All right? Feng Jixing held his sword horizontally, and with a wolf howl, the purple electric flame wolf climbed onto his shoulder. The thunder and lightning caused by his martial soul poured into the sword, and his battle robe immediately fluttered. In addition to his sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, many girls in the capital went crazy and screamed before he even made a move. Tang Bin still fought with his bare fists. He was proficient in the Firefox seal palm technique, so naturally, he would not be afraid of any sword or saber. Here it comes. Feng Jixing took the initiative to attack. With a swing of the wind cutter sword, the wind suddenly rose, and with the power of the law of wind, it was a swift slash, desert gale. Tang Bin did not dare to underestimate it. He took half a step back and opened his left palm. Flames surged, and a seal appeared on his palm. He shouted, "Light seal!" The flames and the gale intersected and exploded. Feng Jixing and Tang Bin each took a few steps back. After stabilizing their breath, they rushed to attack again. Feng Jixing swept across the air and quickly gathered his battle chi. The battle chi turned into scorching hot sand that lingered around the sword, and a very fast attack once again blasted toward his opponent. Hot sand scorching gold. Tang Bin's expression did not change. He waved his palms, and the fire fox seal appeared on his palm again. He raised both palms and launched the third fire fox seal, scorching flame seal. Hong! The raging flames quickly engulfed the front, and Feng Jixing brandished his sword and rushed out of the flames. The hot sand scorching gold slashed heavily on the opponent's palm seal, and quickly broke it. Feng Jixing ignored the flames on his cloak. His whole body was raging with lightning, and he suddenly slashed down from above. It was the fourth style of his self-created wind-walking saber technique, Wild Thunder Saber. Tang Bin looked up at the sky, and the calmness on his face finally showed some fluctuations. He could feel how powerful and overbearing Feng Jixing's saber was. He opened his palm and directly skipped the 5th level of the Fire Fox seal, and directly used the 6th level, God Concentration seal. In an instant, the golden light shone brightly. Tang Bin raised his palm and blasted out like a divine oracle. Boom! The collision of energy in the air formed an impact, and it directly blew the group of nobles on the viewing platform until they let out sharp cries. In the end, under the palm of the god concentration seal, a little blood flowed out from the corner of Feng Jixing's mouth. But his body was in the air and he didn't land. He directly urged his battle energy, and the purple electric flame wolf howled. He raised the saber with both hands, and immediately, a fiend god star actually appeared behind him. His battle energy was so strong that it was a little scary. Oh my god! Qin Yan was flabbergasted. When did Feng Jixing cultivate to this level? Qin Lei squinted his eyes. This is the 8th style of his self-created wind-walking saber technique, devouring demonic saber. I've experienced this move before. It's really F***king powerful. It directly hit me until I vomited blood. In the arena, Tang Bin didn't feel good. Seeing that Feng Jixing's tyrannical saber was about to land, he could only brace himself and face it. Flames lingered in his palm, and he directly used his strongest move, 5 Qi Seal. Immediately, the 5 Qi of fate in the world crazily surged towards Tang Bin. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth. They mutually reinforced and restrained each other. They grew and multiplied endlessly, and turned into a palm force that soared into the sky. Bam! In the air, flames and lightning interweaved together, and a violent wind almost engulfed the entire battling platform. In an instant, the flames were extinguished, and Feng Jixing floated down to the ground. Half of the white robe behind him was burned. He slapped out the flames, and his expression was very calm as he said indifferently, "Did I win? Ift." Tang Bin vomited a mouthful of fresh blood, and the ground around him was filled with crisscrossed saber marks. He swayed on the spot, cupped his fists, and said with a trembling voice, "Commander Feng Jixing's cultivation is indeed extraordinary. Tang Bin loses wholeheartedly. Thank you for letting me win. I'll treat young Master Tang Bin to a drink later. Okay." Chapter 195. When Tang Bin walked off the stage, he could not hide the desolation on his face. His handsome body seemed to have become much more dispirited. The only person sent by the Seven Seas City's Tang sect was stopped outside the top 12. Perhaps only Tang Bin himself knew how much burden he had to shoulder. If he wanted to blame something, he could only blame the heavens for being unfair and placing him in the same group as Feng Jixing. Although Feng Jixing was slightly injured, his complexion was much better than Tang Bin's. He walked off the stage without a change in expression. Facing the congratulations of Chu Huaying, Lin Muyu, and the others, he said frankly, "If it wasn't for Ayu's dream of the peak that helped me break through and step into the heavenly state stage 2, I'm afraid the outcome would have been hard to say. The power of the Fire Fox Seal stage 7 is truly amazing." Chu Huaying nodded and said, "Next, it's up to you." Ling Feng is the son of the state general Ling Nantian. His father, Ling Nantian, is an imperial general and also a heavenly emperor. Under his father's guidance, Ling Feng can be said to be like father like son. The Ling family's swordsmanship has always been famous for its speed, accuracy, and ruthlessness. Furthermore, Ling Feng is good at hiding his strength and rarely fights, so you must be careful. And got it. Lin Muyu slowly walked down the viewing platform with the dragon spirit sword in hand. In the distance, Ling Feng also stepped onto the stage with a faint smile on his face and a mysterious grade level 2 sword in hand. Although it was not as good as the dragon spirit sword, it was enough to compete. However, Lin Muyu's greatest chance of winning was that he was now at the 2nd heavenly state, while Ling Feng was only at the 1st heavenly state. As long as his swordsmanship did not lose out too much, he would naturally be able to win. Ling Feng hugged the sword in his arms and did not bow. He smiled and said, "Lin Muyu, I heard that your imperial sword technique is amazing. It just so happens that my Ling family's inherited sword manual is famous for close combat. Today, close combat swordsmanship against swordsmanship, interesting." Lin Muyu secretly frowned. This Ling Feng was indeed extremely arrogant. This kind of arrogance was even better than Jin Feng's arrogance. It seemed that the state general had really spoiled this son. Ling Feng gently pushed the scabbard with his thumb, and the long sword in his hand was already unsheathed. He tossed the scabbard aside, and the long sword turned into 3 sharp sabers that slashed over. Lin Muyu also pushed the scabbard, pulled out the dragon spirit sword, and faced him head-on. Her wrist gently blocked 3 times, blocking all of Ling Feng's attacks. At the same time, she lifted her combat boots and kicked heavily. What? Ling Feng didn't expect Lin Muyu's close combat swordsmanship to be so good. He raised his foot to meet her attack. Pang! Lin Muyu retreated, but Ling Feng's dou qi circled around his combat boots. Using a skillful force, he channeled the force into the ground. With a turn of his body, he launched an attack from the side. With a swing of his long sword, he launched 3 lightning-fast attacks. In the air, he shouted in a low voice, "Yin Yang triple layer." With a low roar, Ling Feng released his martial soul. It was the image of a giant flame beast that lingered around his shoulders. The power of his martial soul was infused into the blade of the sword, causing each of the 3 sword attacks to be very powerful. Lin Muyu had a deep understanding of how powerful it was, but the sudden attack also caught her off guard. She could only quickly summon the wall of the gourd. A golden light flashed, and the wall of the gourd surrounded her body, forcibly blocking the opponent's attack. Pung, pung, pung. 3 consecutive sword attacks actually directly split open the black tortoise shell. With one successful attack, she immediately unleashed her dou qi and kicked the wall of the gourd. Pang! Lin Muyu took 3 steps back and her face was full of shock. She had actually suffered such a big loss in the first exchange of blows. This Ling Feng's family's martial arts were indeed impressive. No wonder Ling Nantian could become a high-ranking state general. Just as Chu Huaying said, this Ling Feng in front of her was definitely not here to give away points. He might even take away the qualification to advance to the top 8 from her hands. Hee. After a series of consecutive attacks, Ling Feng's aura was calm, and a faint milky white dou qi lingered around his body. He smiled and said, "How is it? My Ling family's martial soul is a 2nd-grade martial soul, Flaming Xieji. It is the soul of a legendary ancient beast. It is not something that a mere 10th-grade gourd martial soul can compare to. Lady Lin Muyu, you are an expert from the Holy Temple and one of the Imperial Guards. You can also be called a pillar of the Empire. It is not shameful for you to admit defeat now, and you can also protect your reputation." He spoke extremely calmly, as if all of this was natural. Lin Muyu could not help but smile. She gently flipped her wrist, and the dragon spirit sword made a faint sword sound. She smiled and said, "Thank you for your kindness, young general. However, we have not yet decided the winner and the loser. It is shameful to admit defeat so early." "All right, then I will beat you until you kneel and beg for mercy." Ling Feng sneered. In the next moment, he leaped forward again, and his dou qi turned into wind. The long sword flipped in the wind, and with a sudden whistling sound, the gale directly rushed forward, making it difficult to open one's eyes. However, the force of the blade seemed to be able to pierce through one's skin. This Ling Feng was really too sharp. It seemed that Ling Feng had been biding his time and had never sparred with Feng Jixing, Chu Huaying, and the others. It was probably because of the Gilded Dragon Talisman for this sword battle tournament. The Gilded Dragon Talisman was a dragon talisman that could command 10,000 troops of the Empire. It was indeed very valuable. Anyone would want to obtain this Gilded Dragon Talisman to increase their status and power in the army. Not to mention the wind, how could Lin Muyu lose to him? She opened one hand, and the dragon spirit sword left her hand. However, the power of the laws of wind in the surroundings instantly surged, turning into an even more tyrannical hurricane that rushed towards Ling Feng. Using the wind to control the sword, Lin Muyu spread her 5 fingers, and her dou qi exploded. Thousands of wind elemental forces turned into blades that pierced towards Ling Feng. Almost every wind blade was like a real sword, and it was impossible to defend against. Ling Feng was stunned, and he almost couldn't open his eyes. He hurriedly bent down and shouted, "Xieji fire shield!" Buzz! Ling Feng's martial soul roared, and his dou qi turned into a fiery red shield in front of him. It seemed that his flaming Xieji martial soul also had defensive skills. However, the number of skills was definitely not as many as Lin Muyu's. Bang, bang, bang. The wind blades bombarded the fiery red shield one after another, and the shield became thinner and thinner. Just as the energy of the wind to control the sword was depleted, Ling Feng opened his eyes and saw Lin Muyu rushing towards him. Her fists were covered in flames, and they landed on the Xieji fire shield. Bang! The fire shield was instantly shattered, and Ling Feng's qi and blood were in turmoil. He quickly retreated, but before he had time to catch his breath, Lin Muyu opened her palm from afar. She held a long sword that was spinning at high speed in her hand, and rushed over, using the fire to control the sword. Ling Feng was stunned. He did not even think about it and almost instinctively swept his long sword horizontally. Vigorous fighting aura actually turned into layers of qi armor that followed the blade of the sword. His ears rippled as he shouted, "Sweeping sword!" Lin Muyu was amazed. The Ling family's swordsmanship was indeed impressive. They could actually turn an attack into a defense, but could this kind of defense really block the power of the Dragon Flame Spiral Break? Obviously not. Bang! The Dragon Spirit Sword went straight and instantly penetrated Ling Feng's sword sweep defense. Ling Feng was so shocked that his face turned pale. He hurriedly put the long sword in front of him to block. As a result, the high-speed spinning Dragon Spirit Sword pierced Ling Feng's long sword with a ding-ding-ding sound. In less than half a second, Ling Feng's long sword was directly shattered. This long sword could be considered to have protected its owner. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the sword that was broken, but Ling Feng's throat. However, the Dragon Spirit Sword's momentum did not stop. It still carried the spiral true dragon flame and slammed toward Ling Feng's throat. Just when Ling Feng was about to close his eyes and wait for death, there was suddenly a pa sound. The Dragon Spirit Sword's hilt was grabbed. Lin Muyu giggled and stopped the Dragon Spirit Sword's momentum. The blade was less than a centimeter away from Ling Feng's throat. She smiled and said, "Now, does this count as my victory?" Ling Feng was scared out of his wits. How would he dare to show off? After all, the participants of this sword battle meet had to sign a life or death agreement. Even if Lin Muyu took the opportunity to kill him, his father would not be able to pursue the matter. He could only nod and say, "Lady Lin Muyu's swordsmanship is extraordinary. I, Ling Feng, have already lost." Hua! Lin Muyu withdrew her long sword, cupped her fists, and said, "Thank you for letting me win." Ling Feng also retracted his arrogant attitude. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Lady Lin Muyu, for your guidance. Ling Feng has lost and you have won." When Ling Feng walked off the stage, a round of applause sounded from the viewing platform. It was from Qin Yin and Tang Xiaoxi. Even Qin Jin was nodding his head with a look of approval on his face. Lin Muyu, the godson of the Celestial Emperor, did not disappoint him. Be it in terms of cultivation or character, she had far surpassed Ling Feng. Lin Muyu walked off the stage and quietly waited for the next match. After a few matches, it was time for the most crucial match. Chu Huayin versus Zhen Fang. This match was very complicated, and Chu Huayin was in a difficult position. After all, Zhen Fang was Zhen Xiang's younger brother. If he won, he would be letting Zhen Xiang down. The Divine Marquis residence had also made ample preparations for the sword battle meet. Zhen Fang was the wager of the Divine Marquis residence. If Zhen Fang lost, Zhen Yifan would not look good either. However, if Chu Huayin lost, it would be a disgrace to the royal guards and the royal family. Chu Huayin stood up majestically. His clear eyes looked towards the stage in the distance. That was his dream. Feng Jixing sat on the cold stone steps and smiled. "Surname Chu, if you use the star-plucking finger, you have about a 50% chance of winning against Zhen Fang. If you don't use it, then you will definitely lose. I heard that Zhen Fang has also consumed Dream of the Extreme Peak and stepped into the second heavenly realm. He passed down all his skills to Zhang Yifan. Just do as you see fit. Chu Huayan's expression was calm. I will strive to win. All right. On the viewing platform, Zhang Yifan squinted his eyes and said plainly, Fang Er, your opponent is Chu Huayan. He is not an opponent to be underestimated. Chu Huayan's star-plucking finger was inherited from a hermit master. The power of his finger is so strong that it can even penetrate the armor of battle chi. Now that Chu Huayan has stepped into the second heavenly realm, if you can't defeat him with force, then use your wits. Yes, Lord Father. Zhang Fang held his long sword and smiled. Don't worry, I will definitely defeat this trash. I will also let sister know that trash cannot be the son-in-law of the Zheng family. Jinxiang frowned slightly. There was no expression on her pretty face. She only said plainly, Brother, just be careful. Zhang Fang wanted to say something but stopped. He knew that Jinxiang's words were full of deep meaning. Chapter 196. The cold wind rustled his battle robe, and the ends of Chu Huayan's long hair fluttered in the wind. He carried his sword on his back, as if he didn't intend to fight with his sword. His right hand hung low, and fighting aura surrounded his fingertips. His body glowed with a faint purple light, and his martial soul, the sable, was about to appear. Zhang Fang held a long and thin sword, and his expression was fierce as he sneered. Stop, Chu Huayan. Although you're a member of the royal guard, you should know that there's a huge difference in status between you and my sister. You're just a lowly noble, and you don't even have a title of nobility. How are you worthy of my sister? I advise you to rein in your horse before it's too late. You won't make a huge mistake. Chu Huayan's gaze was like water, and his voice was extremely calm as he said, There's a difference in status between people, but there shouldn't be a difference in character. Young Duke, although Zhenxiang comes from a rich and powerful family, Chu Huayan is confident that with my strength, I can let her live a good life. I'll protect her for the rest of her life and give her happiness. Zhen Fang said angrily, You want to give my sister happiness? Why don't you look in the mirror? Chu Huayan, you lowly bastard. Since you're so stubborn, don't blame me for being impolite. Today, only one of us can walk off the stage alive. Is that so? Chu Huayan smiled and said, Then, I'll have to ask you to teach me. Buzz. Zhen Fang thrust his sword forward, stepping on his martial soul, the glazed pagoda. The blade of his sword was surrounded by sharp sword aura, and it was obvious that he was an expert swordsman from the way he raised his sword. The sword aura instantly spread out, and it didn't look like a single attack. Instead, it looked like thousands of pear blossoms had bloomed in the air. Almost all of Chu Huayan's acupoints were within the range of the sword aura. The strength of Zhen Fang's strike was boosted by the glazed pagoda, so it naturally couldn't be underestimated. Not to mention that Zhen Fang had already stepped into the second level of the heavenly realm, so the ruthlessness of this strike was obvious. Just as Chu Huayan retreated to the edge of the martial arts arena, he suddenly leaped up and left Zhen Fang's attack range. His battle energy surged in midair, and the next moment he launched an attack from midair. His palms turned into fingers and instantly released thousands of star-picking fingers. It was as if thousands of stars were descending from the sky. The magnificence of his moves was indeed rare. Golden Bell Shield. Zhen Fang spun around and stood on the ground, but he still activated his martial soul's skill. A golden barrier appeared around his body, and Chu Huayan's star-plucking finger caused golden ripples to appear on the golden barrier. Just as his body was about to fall, Zhen Fang rushed over with his sword in hand. A sword light flashed, and a ruthless sword shot into the sky. Whoosh! Battle energy gathered in his palms, and Chu Huayan's body suddenly spun in a spiral, perfectly dodging Zhen Fang's sword energy. He spun around and landed on the ground, shouting, Golden Snake Coiling! His movement technique was extremely mysterious. Just as Feng Jixing had said, no one knew who Chu Huayan's master was. However, just based on his skills alone, It was enough for him to stand proudly on the mainland. In fact, Feng Jixing had once said that he would rather face Qin Lei than Chu Huaying's tricky and magnificent moves. This was enough to show how extraordinary Chu Huaying's cultivation was. However, just as Chu Huaying landed on the ground with the golden snake coiling, Jinfeng suddenly launched another attack. His sword spun in the air, and countless sword energies raged towards Chu Huaying. Myriad sword technique. This was a technique that used sword energy to control one's sword. It wasn't very rare, but Jinfeng's move was as swift as a gust of wind and lightning. Furthermore, the timing was very exquisite. He launched his attack the moment Chu Huaying landed on the ground. At this moment, Chu Huaying needed half a second to recover his battle energy, which was also when he was at his weakest. A wisp of blood spurted out from Chu Huaying's shoulder. Following that, more and more blood spurted out. In the blink of an eye, his chest had already been pierced through by 4 to 5 holes. Although they weren't serious injuries, he looked very miserable. Ah! On the viewing platform, Jinxiang suddenly stood up. Her pair of beautiful eyes were filled with shock and worry. Lord Chu. Jinxiang. Jinfeng frowned and said, "Sit down. Don't forget that his opponent is your younger brother. You are a member of the Jinfeng family, so you should have the pride of a Jinfeng family member. How can you lose your composure for a mere imperial guard?" "Father, Jinxiang slowly sat down, but her gaze didn't leave Chu Huaying. She bit her red lips, and a trace of pain appeared on her face. She said, "I only hope that father can fulfill our wish. Other than Chu Huaying, Jinxiang will never fall in love with any other man." "Is that so?" Jinfeng faintly smiled. He raised his head and leisurely said, "Love and hate, gather and disperse. In the endless flow of time, what does it count for? One day you will understand this truth." Jinxiang suddenly lowered her head and looked at the ground. She faintly smiled and said, "I would rather choose not to understand this truth." "You?" Jinfeng angrily glared at his own daughter. However, he suddenly sighed and said, "Father has spoiled you since you were young. Whatever you want, I will give you. However, this is the only thing that I can't let you do as you please. If it was someone else, even if they were born in a poor family, I would have nothing to say. It's fine as long as you like them." But this Chu Huaying, he is Feng Jixing and Qin Yan's man. The grudge between him and the divine Marquis Mansion is simply irreconcilable. Qin Lei can't wait to kill father in anger. Do you really want to consign father to eternal damnation? Jinxiang was speechless. She raised her head and looked at the arena again. Chu Huaying's handsome figure had already launched a counterattack. The battle chi in his body had turned into starlight and surrounded his body. His fingers were like butterflies flying in the air, shooting out beams of starlight. The star-plucking finger, as the name suggested, could pluck stars to injure people. These beams of starlight bombarded Jinfeng, making it almost impossible for him to get close. After fighting for a long time, Jinfeng had already fallen into a disadvantageous position. Perhaps Chu Huaying's injuries looked very miserable, but only Jinfeng himself knew how miserable his situation was. Many of the major acupoints in his body had been sealed by Chu Huaying's star-plucking finger. Even the strength to hold his sword seemed to be a little strained, let alone to use the imperial sword technique. Another swift and fierce star-plucking finger directly pierced through Jinfeng's holy temple battle robe and battle armor. His holy temple deacon's golden insignia instantly shattered and rolled on the ground. Jinfeng didn't even look at the holy temple insignia. Instead, he forcibly gathered his true qi and leaped up to counterattack. His long sword was like a poisonous snake as it pierced towards Chu Huaying's dantian. Was he trying to destroy Chu Huaying's energy sea? For a cultivator, there was probably nothing more important than the energy sea. "You!" Chu Huaying was slightly angered. His left hand suddenly turned into a palm, and a palm descended from the sky. He shouted, "Moon imprint palm!" Boom! The force of the palm descended from the sky and directly landed on Jinfeng's back, blasting him to the ground along with his sword. His face even heavily collided with the hard stone floor, causing blood to flow, and it was a tragic sight to behold. "Let's stop here," Chu Huaying said lightly. "Young Duke, you have already lost. There is no need to struggle anymore. Just admit defeat." Jinfeng's face was full of dejection and regret. Tears swirled in his eyes. As the young duke of the Divine Ho residence and one of the 12 deacons of the Holy Temple, he actually lost so miserably. Furthermore, he didn't lose to experts like Feng Jixing or Qin Lei. Instead, he lost to a nameless royal guard. How could he endure such humiliation? Chu Huaying, Jinfeng raised his head and looked at Chu Huaying. He said softly, "If you really want to marry my sister, then listen to me." Chu Huaying was slightly stunned. Jinxiang was his only weakness other than Chu Yao. Once he heard that he had a chance to be with the person he loved, he lost his ability to judge. He squatted down and asked, "Young Duke, do you have any ideas?" "Of course." Just as Chu Huaying was very close, Jinfeng suddenly reached out and grabbed Chu Huaying's collar. The long sword in his right hand pierced into Chu Huaying's dantian at lightning speed. Blood splattered, but it was only a superficial wound. After all, Chu Huaying's battle aura armor had not been broken. The long sword cut a long wound on his abdomen and blood flowed out. Chu Huaying was furious. He raised his hand and slammed it directly on Jinfeng's abdomen. It was also the location of his qi. A powerful moon reflection palm landed. Boom! Blood splattered from Jinfeng's dantian as if it had exploded. At this moment, his qi had been destroyed. "Chu Huaying, how dare you?" Zhang Yifan stood up abruptly. His figure flashed, and like a goshawk, he swooped towards the martial arts arena. He raised his palm and attacked from above. How could Chu Huaying withstand an attack that was filled with Saint Realm dark force? He even gave up on defending himself. He closed his eyes and said with a faint smile, "Chu Huaying, have a clear conscience." At this moment, another figure attacked like lightning. Flames soared into the sky and a huge fire cauldron blocked in front of Chu Huaying. It was Fire Cauldron Chu Chu. Boom! The flames exploded. Chu Chu and Jinfeng retreated a few steps after their palms collided. Jinfeng also fell from the sky and landed beside Jinfeng. "Marquis, everyone in the sword battle tournament has to sign a life and death agreement." Young noble Marquis launched a sneak attack first. "It's not Chu Huaying's fault. I hope Marquis will understand and not vent his anger on Chu Huaying." Chu Chu cupped his fists and said respectfully, "Young noble Marquis' qi being destroyed is the will of the heavens. My condolences." "You!" Jinfeng shouted angrily and glared at Chu Chu. However, he did not flare up. He did not have the confidence to win against Chu Chu. "Feng Jinfeng turned around and hugged Jinfeng. He checked his injuries and found that his qi had completely leaked out. Jinfeng's cultivation was also destroyed. The battle energy stored in his body had all returned to heaven and earth. Jinfeng's eyes were closed and he fainted. He did not know anything. "Why?" Jinfeng trembled and roared. "Heaven and earth are unfair. Why are they treating me like this?" Chapter 197. "Brother Chu, shall we go down?" Lin Muyu walked up the stage and held onto Chu Huai's arm as she walked down the stage shakily. Chu Huai was in a daze. Although he won, it was a Pyrrhic victory. His physical injuries were nothing compared to his mental injuries. He had accidentally destroyed Jinfeng's qi. Since then, he had formed a deep hatred with the Divine Marquis residence. His relationship with Jinxiang seemed even more impossible. Chu Huai didn't even dare to look in Jinxiang's direction. When they returned to the viewing platform, Lin Muyu comforted him. "It's not your fault. Don't feel guilty." That's right, it was that Jinfeng who launched a sneak attack first. How shameless. Qin Lei rubbed his palms together and said, "This is the Zhe Tian Palace. Who does Jinfeng think he is?" How dare he try to kill you? Well done. A despicable person like Jinfang should have his qi destroyed and his dragon tendons broken. Let's see if he can still be so arrogant after that. Feng Jixing actually understood Chu Huai the best. He sighed and said, Brother Chu, there's no need to despair. There's always a way out. Maybe there'll be a day when you'll see the light. I hope so. Chu Huai's face was pale as he sat there dejectedly. At this moment, the Emperor Qingjin personally walked down the viewing platform and comforted him. Zhenqing, don't be too sad. Chu Huai accidentally injured Jinfang. It's not his fault. I will order the people from the Spiritual Medicine Division to search for famous doctors and elixirs. They will definitely be able to heal Jinfang's qi. Jinfang's expression was sorrowful. He cupped his fists and said, Thank you, Your Majesty, for your mercy. I thank you on behalf of my son. Qinji nodded and said, Come, confer Jinfang the title of Count Xinwei and the title of Eastern Suppression General. He will officially become one of the 13 counts of the empire. This title will be passed down from generation to generation. Also, grant him a luxurious residence in the outskirts of Lanyan City and 200,000 Jinin coins. Thank you, Your Majesty. Jinfang cupped his fists and bowed, but his eyes were filled with sorrow. He said, Come, send the young duke to the Spiritual Medicine Division for treatment. A group of Xinwei battalion soldiers immediately carried Jinfang to receive treatment. Jinfang bowed to the Emperor Qingjin again and left hurriedly. Zhang Yifan accompanied Zhang Fang on the horse carriage as it traveled along Tongtian Street. Zhang Yifan's face was ashen. Beside him, the 1,000-man commander of the Divine Might Battalion, Sikong Nan, was galloping madly on his horse. He had a look of resentment on his face as he said, Chu Huaiqiang took the opportunity to destroy the young noble's sea of qi. He did it on purpose. Damn it, the emperor bestowed the young noble with so many titles, mansions, and coins, but he didn't give the young noble any military power. Marquis, how can the divine Marquis residence tolerate such humiliation? Then what do you want? Zhang Yifan's eyes shone brightly as he said, Speak! Why don't we? Sikong Nan cupped his fists and said, Why don't we immediately gather the Divine Might Battalion and send a letter to the commanders of the Tianshu Province, Songnan Province, and Earthstar Province, asking them to lead their troops and attack the imperial capital. The military strength of the commanders is almost 200,000, but the imperial capital only has 30,000 imperial guards. Even with the addition of the royal guards and the patrolling troops, there are no more than 50,000 people. We can definitely break the city in half a month. Then, Sikong Nan became excited as he spoke, but when he met Zhang Yifan's cold gaze, he immediately trembled and said, Marquis, did I say something wrong? Zhang Yifan said angrily, Sikong Nan, remember this. Zhang Yifan, was conferred the title of Divine Marquis by the current Emperor, Qingjin. Zhang Yifan will forever be the Divine Marquis of the Qin Empire. Whoever wants to replace His Majesty will have to step over my dead body. From now on, if I hear you say such disgraceful words again, don't blame me for escorting you into the imperial city and handing you over to Xiang Yu of the military police battalion. Marquis, Sikong Nan shuddered and said, I won't dare to do it again. Humph. Zhang Yifan lowered his head and looked at Zhang Fang, who was frowning, then looked up at the sky thoughtfully. He sighed, as if he had aged a lot in just a short while. On the viewing platform, the sword duel competition continued until noon. Finally, the final 12 winners were decided, and the final champion would be decided among these 12 people. The next competition would be held in the afternoon, and the emperor would personally entertain the 12 winners at Zetian Palace. At noon, a golden cauldron was set up, filled with exquisite food. Many of the food was presented by the other 11 provinces as tributes, such as fresh fruits from Lingnan, bear paws from Lingdong Province, wild cloud deer meat from Tongtian Province, swans from Yunzhong Province, and 7-core begonia from Qihai City. When the musicians rang the chimes, they also announced the start of the banquet. There were groups of palace maids, and the courtiers were respectfully kneeling at the side, waiting for their orders. Even the pouring of wine was done by someone else. Lin Muyu sat in the middle of Feng Jixing and Chu Huayin, very quiet. He was not very used to this kind of occasion, because the scene in front of him was proof of a saying, "The bell rings and the cauldron eats." The life of the emperor's family was really too luxurious. Even if Lin Muyu was not the kind of guardian who helped the world, he still felt a little guilty eating these things. "Come." Qin Jin raised his silver cup and said with a smile, "My subjects, please drink this cup of wine. I wish that my subjects will be able to obtain a good ranking in the sword duel competition in the afternoon. Come." The emperor downed his cup in one gulp. Lin Muyu and the others did not dare to be negligent, and they all drank their cups one by one. "Xiaoyin?" Qin Jin looked at his precious daughter and signaled with his eyes. Qin Yin immediately stood up and raised her cup of wine. She smiled and said, "Xiaoyin once again offers a toast to all of you. I wish that you all will obtain a good result." She was the future successor of the empire, and the 12 people present were all outstanding talents that the empire would have to rely on in the future. This was also the biggest reason why Qin Jin asked his daughter to offer a toast. In reality, Qin Jin was using this opportunity to groom his daughter into an important courtier in the future, and he had put in a lot of effort. After that, Qin Yin offered a toast to everyone. Everyone was overwhelmed by the favor, but when Qin Yin came in front of Lin Muyu, she smiled mischievously and said, "Brother Yu, don't drink so much." Lin Muyu looked at her flushed face in annoyance and said, "You're the one who should drink less. Look at you, you're already a little drunk." Qin Yin giggled, and her bright red face was like the sunset glow. She was indescribably beautiful. She smiled and said, "I'm fine, but you can't get drunk. Otherwise, you'll lose the sword duel tournament in the afternoon." "Don't worry, I'll give it my all." Lin Muyu smiled slightly. "Yeah. Xiaoyin wishes that brother Yu takes first place in advance." Qin Yin refilled her cup again and said with a smile, "Come, brother Yu, why don't you accompany Xiaoyin for another drink?" "Yeah." Lin Muyu drank another cup. This action, however, caused Yuan Lian and the other disciples of the aristocratic families to be resentful and unhappy. Qin Yin offered a toast to everyone, but she only drank one more cup with Lin Muyu. She even sat on the ground and chatted happily with him. This kind of affection made them extremely jealous, but they had nothing to say. After all, everyone knew that Lin Muyu was the emperor's godson. It was only natural for him to be so intimate with Qin Yin. In the afternoon, Qin Yin was already tipsy. Her little face was flushed as she sat on the viewing platform. She looked at the practice platform from afar and waited for the next round of sparring. There were only 12 people left. Could be said that all of them were fierce tigers. However, the grouping was a little strange. The 12 people were actually divided into 2 groups of 16 to determine the top 8. However, this also meant that 4 people would have no fights. Very quickly, the grouping was decided. Lin Muyu, Chu Huayin, and Feng Jixing were all lucky to have no fights. Feng Jixing was so happy that he didn't have to fight and directly advanced to the top 8. Lin Muyu was also very happy. It was best that they didn't have to fight. They could conserve their strength. The consumption of battle qi in the morning was already very serious. Their next opponents were all experts, so they had to give it their all. The 4 matches ended very quickly. The 2 brothers, Qin Lei and Qin Yan, won smoothly. In addition, Yuan Lian, Lin Chongqing, and Murong Zhou also advanced to the top 8. At this point, there were only 8 names left on the gilded wooden board of the sword contest tournament. They were Feng Jixing, Chu Huayin, Qin Lei, Qin Yan, Lin Muyu, Yuan Lian, Lin Chongqing, and Murong Zhou. Lin Chongqing and Murong Zhou were all generals of the empire's provinces. They had fought hard in the army when they were young. After so many years, their cultivation had improved, so they also qualified to participate in the sword contest tournament. Very quickly, the eunuch quickly listed the matchups of the top 8, Feng Jixing versus Lin Chongqing Yuan Lian versus Qin Lei Lin Muyu versus Qin Yenmerong Zhou versus Chu Huayin. I actually met Big Brother Lin Muyu. Qin Yen revealed a dispirited expression and said, "How can I be his match? Sigh. I thought that I could meet Lin Chongqing or Yuan Lian. At least I could get into the top 4. Qin Lei smiled and said, Yen, it's already not easy for you to enter the top 8. After all, you are only 18 years old. Everyone here is older than you. Think about it, if you were to cultivate for another 7 to 8 years, who among us would still be your match? Qin Yen, on the other hand, was delighted. Big Brother is right. This kid really didn't know how to be humble at all. The first match, Feng Jixing versus Lin Chongqing. Both of them were experts who used the saber. Furthermore, they were also commanders of a region. They had struggled in the army for many years and refined a set of saber arts for killing. It was just that Feng Jixing's saber arts were more skilled and overbearing. Furthermore, his own cultivation also surpassed Lin Chongqing's. Hence, after several dozen rounds, Lin Chongqing abandoned his saber and admitted defeat. The second match, Yuan Lian versus Qin Lei. The son of the country protecting General Wuxia faced off against the eldest son of Prince Yuning. But the disparity in strength between the two was too great. In less than 10 rounds, Yuan Lian sustained injuries and was defeated. The might of Qin Lei's 7-layered god-binding shackles was too tyrannical. Yuan Lian practically adopted defensive tactics from the start of the battle, but he continued to defend until the end of his defeat. The third match, Lin Muyu versus Qin Yen. Even though they were opponents, the relationship between the two was pretty good. Lin Muyu wielded the dragon spirit sword, while Qin Yen wielded the fire serpent spear. The two of them stepped onto the high platform side by side, immediately causing a wave of cheers. Due to Lin Muyu's identity as the emperor's adopted son, he seemed to have already nurtured quite a number of female fans. On the viewing platform, there were at least a dozen or so noble girls waving their delicate arms and shouting, "Lord Lin Muyu, do your best." Tang Xiaoxi's teacup landed heavily on the table. Her face was unhappy, and her beautiful eyes carried disdain as she said, "Humph. So what if these girls know Mu? To actually cheer for Mu like this? So infuriating." Qin Yin giggled. "Xiao, she is so petty." Tang Xiaoxi pouted her small mouth, but was unwilling to admit that she was petty. Her twin peaks rose and fell angrily as she said, "Xiao Yin is also bullying me. Don't tell me you're happy that those girls are cheering for Mu." Qin Yin's beautiful eyes were like water. She shook her head and said with a smile, "No, I'll be very happy if they cheer for Big Brother Yu. But after I ascend the throne, I'll cut the salary of their fathers by 30%. Tang Xiaoxi's face was full of respect. As expected of Xiao Yin. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.